All right, we are recording, and we're beginning. We're going to open up this episode with another piece of fan mail, our second ever piece of fan mail. Compliments of our audience, also known as Tommy Mitchell. I'm just going to read it. I actually have not read this before, so this is a cold reading. To the producers of Background Noise, is Fabricio depressed? I ask because, despite just receiving word about a Rear Window episode, which I understand involves Isaac, it seems as though Fabricio is doing most of these episodes from that dungeon that I assume his basement is, alone, isolated, like Charles Foster Kane, locked away in Xanadu, slowly dying behind him upon rows of chain-link fence, all made of different geometric patterns, housing not only a zoo-sized zoo, but also the world's greatest and largest private collection of art from antiquity on up to the modern times. Also, I'm certain there's a snow globe down there somewhere, waiting to be dropped. That's the impression that I get anyhow. Hope you're doing all right, Fabricio. Your listeners, him, love you. You too, Isaac, if you are still around. I am not. Except today I am. Speaking of Rear Window, I just watched it again the other night on TCM. Pretty good movie. I don't have too much to say in this email, as you can probably tell, but I wanted to say that I just got back from the continent, Italy, to be specific, and I'm sad to tell you that the only Italian film recommendation I received from an actual Italian was La Dolce Vita. The only other one was A Room with a View, a film I absolutely love, but as I recall, an English film about English people visiting Florence for about 20 minutes of screen time, based on an English novel directed by an expatriate American. In other words, not an Italian film. I bring this up to ask, what are some of your favorite Italian, not European, films? Italy has such a wonderful national cinema, at least the neo-realist period and the auteur 60s and 70s, but also the great tradition of genre pictures, Gallo, spaghetti westerns, Polzieschi. It's a shame that I didn't get more of an answer. Fellini is great, and so is La Dolce La Dolce Vita. But I mean, how many greats came from that small peninsula? Rossellini, De Sica, Leone, Mano Bava, Argento. I could go on. Visconti. It's really quite incredible. Tom, a friend.
Actually, it's TCM. TCM is in the Turner Classic Movies, also Tommy C. Mitchell.
That makes sense. I was kind of concerned because I've never heard him refer to himself as Tom before.
Yeah.
TCM makes more sense. All right, Fabricio, you probably actually have an answer to this question.
Is the movie playing?
Yes. Is it silent? Perhaps. No, the movie's not playing.
This is the extended cut.
This is the director's cut.
Extended cut of the director's cut commentary.
All right, so we just opened with a special some special bonus material.
That's a bonus. That's bonus material.
Bonus material. Tommy Mitchell's piece of fan mail.
This never happens when I'm running the show.
Apparently, Google Play won't play the movie unless you're watching it, which is stupid. But now we're watching it. And we are 22 seconds in.
No one follows along with the fucking movies anyway.
That's true.
Which, when I say no one, I mean Tommy doesn't.
Tommy doesn't watch the movie. He just
really, it's more of an excuse.
It's for our own benefit, absolutely.
To kind of put a timer on this.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, who knows how long.
And Tommy's going to want to hear the bonus material because he wrote it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the gist of Tommy's email.
Well, you don't just. I'm not going to fucking edit this out. Don't worry about it.
Fabricio's depressed. He lives in a dark place.
I do live in a dark place sometimes.
And Tommy was disappointed with how few recommendations of Italian films he received while in Italy.
That is a shame, actually.
So begin.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I was in Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic, as they now call it.
Yes.
Which reminds me of a film, Kicking and Screaming, but that's for another time. I was in the country. And I remember at one point I was receiving a tour. I was with a woman. This woman who was guiding us on our tour.
Oh, that's the wrong thing. Carry on.
Oh, this is the volume right here. I know your laptop better than you do, I think.
There we go. Carry on. A tour.
This is already starting out very well. But, yeah, I was receiving a tour of the city of Prague, and I remember I started talking to her about Czech films, like the films of Yuri Trinka and Milos Forman and she was very taken and impressed by my knowledge of Czech films, and so I asked her, could you recommend some more for me? And she made like pages worth of movies for me.
That's pretty good.
Like fucking like actual dozens and dozens of movies. I still have yet to go through all of them. The point being that she actually gave me she gave me the history of Czech cinema as a kind of recommendation, which is great. So it seems to me that it's a shame that Tommy did not get the same treatment in the country of Italy.
Yeah, I'm disappointed to hear it. Not enough cinephiles
in Italy, which is ironic, because they do it better than everybody. Do you have any Italian movies that you've seen that you like?
Ones that I can be sure are purely Italian. I can only think of Fellini, and the one that was mentioned, Dolce Vita.
That's Fellini.
Oh, is that Fellini?
Yeah.
Perhaps I'm thinking of a different one. Whatever that Oscar won some sort of Oscar. Life is Beautiful.
Roberto Benigni? You're thinking of that's
Perhaps
Roberto Benigni.
World War II.
Yeah.
Principessa.
That's Roberto Benigni,
There we go.
who was the star, director, and writer of that film.
It's an excellent film.
It's a very funny film about the Holocaust,
Mm-hmm.
which in and of itself I think is a grand old.
Yeah,
thing.
that's a hard thing to do, but yeah, it is triumphant in that regard.
You know who was a big fan of Fellini? The French New Wave. You know who was a member of the French New Wave? Francois Truffaut. You know who's in the movie we're watching right now?
Is it Francois Truffaut?
It's Francois Truffaut, right there.
Good tying it together.
We're watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the director's cut. I don't know if it was mentioned already. I don't think it was.
I don't think we did. But yeah, this is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, director's cut.
Actually, I'm curious as to why you picked it, but I guess I should answer first about the Italian thing. Or maybe I should answer about the dungeon thing. The reason why it sounds like I'm in a dirty old dungeon is because I am in a dirty old dungeon.
Yeah, your basement is kind of sad. But it's very nice.
Oh, it's a lovely basement. It gets pretty awful lonesome.
Uh-huh.
Especially when you're doing commentary.
It breeds loneliness.
It kind of does. Like Ingmar Bergman's Island. Yeah, so Italian movies. Yeah, he mentioned a lot of great Italian films and filmmakers, and I don't know what more I can contribute other than specific titles. I'm not even going to mention the art house filmmakers like Fellini, Antonioni, and Rossellini. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the whole neo-realist stuff, so I'm going to gloss over that. I'm going to talk about the schlock.
Good.
That's what really matters here is the schlock. The films by people like Lucio Fulci, who made zombie movies, and some of the best zombie movies ever made. He mentioned Mario Bava and Dario Argento, who are two great
schlock filmmakers.
Two great like genre horror. They specialize in horror. I'm trying to remember if it was Mario Bava's son. Is it Lamberto Bava or Umberto? I think it's Umberto Bava who made one of my favorite horror films called Demons or Demoni in Italian. It's an Italian movie that takes place in Germany and they speak English. It's really quite fantastic. The idea of the movie is the plot is so fucking loose, but basically it's like a zombie movie but with demons, where someone gets infected with a demon thing and they turn into a demon, and then they start trying to turn everyone else into demons, and it's in a movie theater.
That's interesting.
The movie takes place primarily in a movie theater. I love that movie. I don't think Tommy's seen it yet. He should see Demons.
There you go, Tommy. A recommendation of an Italian film for you to enjoy.
I'll go more in depth into this. I'll spend another. I'll prepare and I'll spend another episode just completely devoted to Italian movies because it's my favorite cinema is Italian. Let me tell you.
That's high praise.
It's very high praise. When you talk about European films, the bar is up here is Italy, then right below them is Poland, then right below them is Germany. That's right. I didn't mention France.
No, you didn't. I noticed that you did not.
That's right.
I'm sure that Tommy will be upset. But he's not
no,
here.
he won't be upset because he'll know
Stop
that I
us.
would have said it. He knows. He could have predicted me saying it. And he wouldn't entirely disagree. He would disagree with me, but he wouldn't agree with why I chose those countries. Anyway, thank you for your kind, lovely letter, Tommy.
We always appreciate your fan mail. We try to respond
Why did you decide
as promptly as we can.
why did you? Are those notes?
I have lots of notes.
Oh my God, Lord!
This is why.
If only you could see. Are these all?
This is all topics to discuss.
Oh my! These are pages of notes.
Pages of notes to discuss Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh my Lord, Tommy Mitchell! If you could see this,
And not necessarily as is the point of the show.
Well,
not
I was
really discussing.
I was about
Close
to ask
Encounters.
why you picked this movie,
But yeah, I'll
this
give
is
you
your pick. Isaac picked
this is my pick.
for the week.
And I'll tell you why. Because I was this past week I spent in California visiting my parents-in-law with my wife. Temecula, California, halfway between Los Angeles and
Temecula.
San Diego. So as a result, for the first time, we had like a day where her parents were working and there was nothing to do. So for the first time in my life, I went to Los Angeles for the day, and went to Universal Studios to do their little back tour, which includes a lot of Steven Spielberg. I don't know what you call it, like glorifying
Paraphernalia.
Yeah, or like two of the sets remaining there that they like include on the tour, War of the Worlds and part of the Jaws.
Oh, I
set,
love War of the Worlds,
including the shark. It's the plane crash from War of the Worlds.
Do you want to do a? Well, I know you have a lot of stuff to talk about. Do you want to do like an overview of Steven Spielberg's career at some point during this?
Let's go ahead and do it now, because once
you
I get going,
start, okay. Well,
it's
I
gonna
don't
be
know.
hard to derail.
I don't know how long, because again, we could spend hours talking about Spielberg's career, but I guess let's just go through it film by film, just to.
Well, yeah, and then
let's see what we have to say about each.
Because I was thinking also, like, you had just watched the Steven Spielberg documentary. So
About
you
his
probably
film.
have
I've
a
seen-
lot more insight
I've
as a
seen
result.
just about all of his movies. All of the films of his I haven't seen, I can probably put on one hand. Like, I have yet to see Sugarland Express, which is technically his first feature
Right,
film.
my first feature.
But I've seen just about all of them. Okay, so
Well, this will become relevant later. So
have you
carry
seen
on.
have you seen a few of his films?
You
must have seen the biggies.
Surprisingly, a few, but yeah. I mean, I'd say that any child born between 1970 and 2003 has seen several, if not many Steven Spielberg films.
Once we get things get interesting in the 2000s, but we'll get to that. So we could start with probably, since we haven't seen Sugarland, we'll start with his first big success.
The first blockbuster film.
Some people would say
it has been called Jaws.
Jaws.
Right.
There's not much you can say about it that hasn't already been said.
Mm-hmm.
It really is just a really fantastic movie about a killer shark.
Fantastic movie with a massive amount of production problems that are too really extensive to discuss and have been discussed by much more knowledgeable and
I don't know
well-spoken
I was
people.
there.
The one that I'll recommend is a book by Carl Gottlieb about the making of Jaws.
Oh, yeah. Is it called The Making of Jaws?
It's not. I forget what it's called. Maybe just like Jaws, the production log, something like that. But it's really good because it was written...
Or In the Mouth of the Shark, The Making of Jaws.
Yes, that too.
That sounds like a good title.
That's a better title. That's what he should have gone with.
Damn it, Gottlieb.
He was one of the writers for Jaws, and he wrote the book during production. So it's a pretty interesting take because it's written not from the perspective of Jaws was a huge success. It's written from the perspective of like, oh wow, this is really going off the rails.
Yeah.
We're fucked.
There are some distinct differences in the book and in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Certain character dynamics are different. But it's just all for the better, I think, because the book itself is, it's fine. But the movie is just a tour de force. I remember the last time I saw it was in actually Czechoslovakia.
Oh really?
Saw it in a hotel in Czech.
In Czech?
We watched it in Czech.
Interesting.
Or no, we saw it in German. It was a German channel, so we watched it in German. but it was fantastisch, as the Germans would say. I remember watching it with my mother and father, and my mother saying, "Oh, it's just a giant rubber, shark." But then 40 plus minutes in the movie, she's like screaming and shit. I'm thinking, well, I thought it was just a rubber fucking shark. Why are you so emotional about it?
It's scary.
And clearly, it gets you. It gets you. I remember when I saw it. I talked about how we saw Rear Window in class,
right?
And how it worked. The same thing with Jaws. Jaws was just it worked. Actually, all the films we watched in that class worked. Mm-hmm. What else did we watch in that class? We watched Jaws. We watched Alien. We watched Harold and Maude. That was an interesting one. But anyway, so yeah, Jaws is just a, it's not like there's some great depth to the movie. It's not like it's about anything really that important. It's just a straightforward movie about a killer shark and people trying to kill it, and a man who's afraid of the water. And it's fucking amazing.
And it is, yeah, it really is. It's quite effective.
And he follows that up with this fucker, Close Encounters. I remember he made a bet with George.
Oh, really?
About who's the I'm sure you've heard the story about, because this was also around the same time, because Star Wars was being made at this time too. And
they're both 77, right?
No, this is 79, 8, 70. This came out after Star Wars, like a year or so. And they made a bet before either of the films were made about which film would make the most money. Like which one would be the big success. And they bet on each other's movies. So Stephen bet that George's film would be the big success, and George bet on Stephen's film. And I don't really need to say much more. They were both big successes, really. But Star Wars blew everything out of the water. But this is this movie that we're watching. What do you think about this movie? Because you've seen a different version than I have.
Yeah, I've only seen the theatrical version.
I've only seen the director's version.
But yeah, I think it's a pretty excellent follow up to Jaws. I don't think it matches up to Jaws. I think I like it as much as E.T., which I know a lot of people think that it's kind of just like a warm up to E.T. But I think it's a pretty effective and interesting film.
But before we get to E.T., there's the little matter of a film called 1941.
Which I have not seen, so begin.
1941 is a comedy.
Set in the year 1941.
Set in the year 1941. The
obviously ripe for comedy.
The
hilarious time in the world history.
When the Japanese... Well, the whole movie's about, like, the scare of Japanese invading America. And that's what... And then in the movie, the Japanese try to invade America. That's part of... And John Belushi plays a pilot.
That's, awkward, I guess, is the word
it's,
I'm looking for.
It
sounds uncomfortable.
Depending on how you watch it, you can consider it a good movie or not. It's generally considered one of his weaker films. Because, he's trying to make just a funny film, and he's not... He has comedy in his movies. He can have funny moments, but he can't do straight-up comedy. Or he's never really done it. And 1941, I guess, for most people, is an example of proof of why he shouldn't. It was kind of a dud. I think it made back its budget, though. Even then, here's the thing: he's made duds, but he hasn't really made films that have actually lost money.
Yeah, his ineffectual films still stand.
His
above.
Versions of a dud aren't very bad at all. But then he follows that up. After 1941, which was he got the shit kicked out of him with that one. He had to come up with something big. And so what happens? George comes up and says, "Hey, I got a really cool idea about an architect who goes around the world and
archaeologist.
He's an archaeologist. He's an architect. He builds structures to defeat the Nazis. I got a great idea about an archaeologist who looks for treasures, and he's got to fight the Nazis. And George, that's a great idea." I don't know why my Steven Spielberg sounds like James Stewart.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but George.
George, I think that's great. But so they work on Indiana Jones together, and they make three wonderful pictures.
They make three wonderful pictures, and another picture,
and then another one. They make three wonderful pictures together with Indiana Jones, spanning the 80s. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, which is my personal favorite, and Last Crusade, which is your personal favorite. Everyone's got a favorite, except for Crystal Skull. No one
does that as a favorite.
Crystal Skull is the Ishtar of that franchise. But that's also in the 80s that for the first time we get Steven Spielberg trying to Well, before we get to that, there's E.T., The Little Matter of E.T., which is probably, if there's ever a film that probably will be put on his tombstone, it's probably E.T. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that movie it's so quintessentially Steven. It gets away with barely having a plot. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the movie recently?
Yeah.
It doesn't really have a plot for like 45 minutes because they get to the alien's there, E.T.'s there, and then the next 40 minutes are just him hanging around and developing a bond with Elliot. And that's it. Like, they don't... Now, obviously, eventually they try to get him to phone home and shit like that, but for the most part, I remember watching it with Tommy. The first time I'd seen it after about maybe at least 10, 15 years, I saw it at Alan's place with Tommy late at night. I remember both of us just watching it, and it was so bizarre, because we remember the film, obviously, but we couldn't remember everything about it. It was just watching it again as an adult. It was just, oh my god, this was the movie.
But it's great. It's very
great.
heartwarming.
Well, here's the thing: I had to see it again after watching it with Tommy. I saw it maybe a couple weeks afterwards again to really like digest what I had seen, because it was kind of amazing to me. It felt almost European, just tonally what that film was going for. I mean, technically there are no villains in that movie. There are, but they don't have faces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's this blank, faceless enemy. It's really bizarre. And I remember there was that scene at the end, or near the end, where Elliot is talking about, you know, where they're trying to save E.T., the doctors are, because he's dying. He's like, he's saying, leave him alone, you know, I saw him first, you know, he's mine. And then there's that one older doctor who's like telling him it's going to be okay, you know, and Elliot's saying, he came to me, and the guy says, I know he came to me too. You know what I mean? Implying that has this happened more than once. I remember Tommy not laughing, but just kind of chuckling a little bit at that. I remember him saying, it's so weird, isn't it? And I was saying, what do you mean? Nobody's this good. You know, people aren't like this. And I thought, it's true, but people in Steven Spielberg films are that good.
That's right.
You know, that's Steven Spielberg. E.T. is Steven Spielberg. Well, actually, no. I was about to say that film is Steven Spielberg puking Steven Spielberg, but that's not true. There's another film he makes later that's even more that. But yeah, E.T. is E.T. It's probably kind of one of the great mainstream pop culture pieces of film ever made.
Yeah, probably.
Along with a couple other Steven Spielberg films.
Yeah, I was going to say, beloved film that will go down in the ages. Created by Steven Spielberg.
He's got his. Not only does he have a spot in the Hall of Fame, he's got like a whole wing devoted to himself at this point. Sorry, I was trying to catch a ganumph. After that, then in the 80s we also get something interesting where we get Steven starting to try and make quote-unquote serious pictures. So he's trying to branch out from just pure entertainment cinema to some things that are...
Films instead of movies, I believe is a quote that is in the Jaws book.
So...
Said, I'm tired of making movies, I'm ready to make a film.
That's kind of lame, but okay. That he would say that. But that's essentially what he's trying to go for, and he tries with movies like The Color Purple.
Right.
Have you seen The Color Purple?
That's a very bizarre film.
Oh, you've seen it?
I have seen that one.
How do you feel about the lesbian stuff?
Weird.
It's because it's there, but it's not. It's really implied.
It's very non-Spielberg.
It's very non-Spielberg-y, but at the same time, it's like it's about racism and South, and yet it doesn't feel like it is, because it feels too nice to be about that. But yeah, that was Steven. That was like, it's probably of all the films his most awkward in that sense, just because he's still trying to figure out how to do it, and he'll attempt this like multiple times throughout the decade. Another more successful example, I think, is Empire of the Sun.
Never seen that one.
Which is a film with a young Christian Bale. And when I say young, I mean like 15, 14, 13. Young Christian Bale, and it takes place in like Manchuria in China, and then it gets occupied by the Japanese. Right, so it's about the Japanese invasion of China. And Christian Bale is the son. He's like a British boy. His family, they're British patriots living in China, China's colony. And then he gets separated from his parents, and the whole film is him just by himself, having to deal with being alone in a war zone, and it's got some really beautiful stuff in it. There's this one lovely part where, and I can't really explain it without having. If you haven't seen the film, you won't really get it. But basically, they set up this idea of what an angel or like your soul going to heaven looks like what that must be like, and then later on in the film, the atomic bomb goes off, and really far off in the distance. But then the boy sees like the wave of like the nuclear fallout in the sky, and he thinks it's like a friend of his going to heaven. It's very beautiful. The idea
That's very
of that.
poetic.
It's very poetic, and Empire of the Sun's a great movie about stuff. It's about stuff, that's for sure. But then, we end the decade. What do we end with? We ended with The Last Crusade, but also we ended with my second favorite, if not my favorite, Spielberg film, which is Always, which is a film starring Richard Dreyfuss, who is also in this movie.
A guy he likes to work with.
A guy he has worked with a few times, and Holly Hunter and John Goodman are all in it. And it's a remake of a classic Hollywood film. I forget, was it called? A Man Called Joe? I think that was the original film. I think by William Cameron Menzies, or was it Victor Fleming? Anyway, point is, it's a remake of an old movie that Spielberg loved, and the plot of the movie is that this guy, who's like a pilot of sorts, in the original film I think he's a war pilot, but in Spielberg's version he's like a fire bomber, so he puts out fires, and he essentially dies in a plane accident, and then he becomes a ghost, but he's still around, and so he has to essentially help his wife move on from his death in order for him to be able to move on into the afterlife. Oh, it's a weepy, it's a tearjerker. It really is. But a lot of people hate that movie. A lot of people think it's one of his worst movies. But I loved it. And maybe it's because I'm obsessed with death that I just took to the material so well. Sure. I remember I recommended it to my father. And I asked him after a certain point, have you seen the film? Did you like it? And he said, "Oh, Fabricio, I couldn't. I had to stop after like 30 minutes.
I couldn't bear it.
I couldn't. And then I thought, wow, it's really hard for him to like stop watching a movie. So a lot of people just don't like it. So it's apparently a very selective acquired taste, but I love
Interesting.
Always. But basically, the film wasn't a big success. So how do you bounce back? Just like with 1941, he had to bounce back with Indiana Jones and then E.T. How do you bounce back from Always with a 1-2 knockout? Probably the greatest 1-2 knockout in the history of cinema. In the same year, in 93, we get Jurassic Park and Schindler's List.
Yeah.
That's the greatest. That is the greatest.
That's a really good year.
That's a really good year. That's a great year. And also, because it's at this point where we get to the tale of two Spielbergs.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put that.
The tale of two Spielbergs comes to full fruition in the 90s, where you actually do have one Spielberg who is specifically making really successful commercial blockbuster movies, and the other Spielberg who's really making more
pure entertainment in its best form,
like
and pure
artistic,
and pure art in its best form,
critically appealing cinema, right? Because in that decade you get films like Schindler's List, but you also get Amistad, but then by the end of the decade, you also get Jurassic Park: The Lost World, the sequel, which is. I'm a big fan of that one. Actually,
I like that one a lot too.
I like it more than I like the first one.
That's actually my favorite one as well. Jurassic Park: The Lost World.
You see, I think there's something to a girl using gymnastics to kill a velociraptor.
That glass cracking scene is brilliant.
Oh yeah, that is pure Spielberg.
That's tension at its finest.
Yeah, that is pure cinema.
That's right.
That's what that is. It really is. Actually, it's funny too because again, rewatching a lot of Spielberg's movies, I hadn't recently or not too recently, but not too long ago, I rewatched both the Jurassic Park movies. And it wasn't until I rewatched them that I realized I'd never actually seen either of them from beginning to end.
You didn't watch the third one from beginning to end?
The third one sucks.
Yes,
you don't have to watch from beginning to end, from back to front. It doesn't work. It's not good. But the first two films, I had not seen them at all from beginning to end. And I realized this because when I saw Jurassic Park for the first time, I think I started watching it when they go on the expedition, the cars, the part, where they're talking about chaos theory, and he's like, you do expect to have dinosaurs on the dinosaur tour, and stuff like that. And then, the Tyrannosaurus scene. That's when I started watching the movie. So there's like a good 20 minutes in front of that.
There's a lot of intelligent filmmaking that comes before that.
And I realized this affected the way I saw the film, because watching it in that way, I thought that Laura Dern was the mother of those kids.
Oh, interesting.
I thought those were her kids. And I thought the dude, Sam Neill, was trying to win her over, but he didn't like kids, so when he gets along with the kids by the end, it's like Laura Dern and Sam Neill are like, hey. I thought that's what that was going on there.
Interesting.
It was like a whole different dynamic.
So yeah, you had a different interpretation of that whole...
I think a better interpretation, to be honest. I'm going to be honest. I think I think those kids should have been Laura Dern's.
When you do your Jurassic Park remake, you know what to do.
And the same thing with Jurassic Park 2. Even worse, I think I didn't see the first 40 minutes of Jurassic Park 2.
That's a large part of the film.
Jurassic Park 2, when did I start? The trailer, the RV on the click scene. That's
really?
when I started.
Oh, there's so much good before.
There's just a lot. I remember watching it, I thought, this is all in the movie? What?
It's a shame.
Well, but then I rewatched.
I'm glad that you saw it all.
And also, I realized probably the greatest scene in the first movie, the Jurassic Park movie, the scene that is probably the most quoted, or one of the most memorable scenes, the first time he sees the herd of brontosauruses, and the music swells up, and then he says, they run in herds. They do run in herds. I'd never seen that. Even though I knew the quote was from the movie, I'd never actually seen that.
That's funny.
And then when I saw it for the first time, I started crying. I don't know why. I thought, yeah.
That's a profound effect.
I don't know how that happened, but I just started crying. I thought, oh my God, they do run in herds. You're right.
And in the film, they do.
That film is magic,
That is.
Jurassic Park is actually a magical film.
And one that you and I reference often in terms of, like, an example of something done so well that inspired so many people to do things so terribly.
I remember even as recently as this week, Alan posted this whole forum, this thread of comments of people talking about how is it that 20 years later Jurassic Park still looks so good. And everyone was explaining how, they built an actual life-size Tyrannosaurus robot for a lot of the shots. And people say, what? And then other people saying, the Velociraptors, a lot of them were actually people in suits.
And it's really good.
And then they just went through this whole rabbit hole of all these interesting little details about how they actually made the film and how all the effects came about. And the moral of the story is, I remember one of the last comments was, so basically what you're telling me is that there's only 6 minutes of actual CGI in this movie. But the point is basically that if there's one thing that movie taught us is that special effects will never be able to replace good actual real practicals effects. And I don't mean this because I'm nostalgic for a different way of filmmaking. I mean this because if I can tell it's a special effect, it's not good. Mm-hmm. I remember I watched I said this probably in the last episode, I watched A Murder on the Orient Express recently.
Right.
And whenever they just showed a shot of the train, it looked so fake. It looked like such CGI. I thought, why are you showing this to me? It's ruining
the suspension
the
of
illusion
disbelief
of the film.
Yeah.
But Jurassic Park came out in '93 when they were just starting to be able to do this kind of
computer
stuff
animation at all
in that way, and the dinosaurs are amazing, and they still look amazing. You watch it today, and you think those are the best dinosaurs you've ever seen. That was something I remember that's related to another series of films, or another kind of film, the disaster film. Geostorm came out earlier this year. I remember when I saw the trailer for that, maybe not even a year ago with Alan, I remember we were talking about how somehow tornadoes and movies have somehow gotten worse over time. Twister was the peak.
Yeah, Twister was the peak.
Twister was the peak, and that was, 90, 94, 95? Mm-hmm. It was also in the 90s. And then Twisters just got worse over time. Tornadoes just got worse over time in movies. Look at the ones in The Day After Tomorrow. They're not as good. And then you look at the ones in Geostorm. Oh, they're not good at all. They look terrible. They look like the Tasmanian devil doing up a storm cloud,
Mm-hmm.
But basically, yeah, and then, and there's also Schindler's List, which is, a movie about the Holocaust. Anyway, there's also other films.
There are other films.
I don't mean
From
to overlook Schindler's List, but do you have anything to say about Schindler's List?
What can you say beyond, what's been said by the critics?
It's a film about the Holocaust.
It's spectacular.
Some people hate it.
Liam Neeson.
Oh, I love Liam Neeson. Some people hate it, though.
That's surprising.
There's some people who think that it's a film that's kind of too sentimental to be a film about the Holocaust. People like Terry Gilliam.
Okay. Well, that's in his nature.
Yeah.
Spielberg's nature is to be sentimentalist.
And it's also, it's not like he's telling a movie necessarily. It takes place during the Holocaust,
right.
But it's a film about the people who survived the Holocaust.
Right.
Yeah, because you can't just have a movie where everyone dies. That's just too much.
It's true.
It's too much. So I think it's a great film. Certainly, just like Jurassic Park, you cry a lot watching Schindler's List.
That's true.
I think it does happen. That scene at the end, this pin. I could have gotten one more with this pin. Everyone cries a little bit when they watch that.
Mm-hmm.
That's he's made the complete 180-degree turn from a completely self-centered, pragmatic individual to someone who only cares about saving others. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But it's also in the 90s that we get Spielberg trying to merge the two, trying to create one cohesive Spielberg. And the first film where he does that is a little film made in 1997 called Saving Private Ryan. A small film.
A footnote in cinematic history.
To say the least. Because, the question becomes, how can you make a film that's full of action, visceral, adrenaline-pumping action, but also have it be with a lot of meaning
grounded
and depth?
Humanity.
A war picture. A film about World War II. I already made a film about the Holocaust, might as well make a film about World War II. And it's a wonderful film. And I think it's the first film he did with Tom Hanks.
Oh,
and
yeah?
he's done 5 films in total with Tom. So it's kind of they have a little partnership going. That's the first one. And I wonder what was the last film that was. I think the last film he made in the 90s was, in fact, AI, Artificial Intelligence. I think that came out in 99. That's the cat.
That's the cat. Why are you yelling? What's wrong? Oh, you might be on his tail. Sorry. We're good. The cat is happy again. I think you were accidentally on his tail.
That's funny.
It took you a long time to speak up. Yes, AI, artificial intelligence.
So Tommy Mitchell warned me that. Well, Tommy Mitchell hates that movie. Apparently, he said,
"Oh yeah,
it's a terrible movie for me to see out. It's a bad movie." And so that made me even more curious to watch it. I thought, oh, this has got to be interesting to say the least. And so, a little backstory for those people who don't know about AI. It was a film that Stanley Kubrick wrote. But Stanley Kubrick wanted Steven Spielberg to direct it. He wrote it with Steven in mind. And he tried to convince Steven to direct the film. And, Steven just eventually told him, Stanley, this is your movie. You've put all this work into it. You direct it. And so Stanley said, okay, fine. I guess I'll direct it. But then he died. And so afterwards, then I forget who it was in the Kubrick family. I forget it was his wife who approached Steven and said, look, if you don't make this movie, it's never going to be made. And so Steven said, all right, I guess I'll do it.
I guess I'm making this movie.
I guess I'm making a Stanley Kubrick film. And so because of that kind of clouded the film for a lot of people. It colored the experience because I think critics especially were looking for the parts that were Steven and the parts that were Stanley.
Right.
And let me tell you, I'm going to say this right now before I tell you if I like it or not. That film goes through a lot of tonal shifts.
Okay.
Like, it really does. It jumps, it really, when you think about where the movie starts and where it ends, you think, how the fuck did we get here? This was a quantum leap in the plot here. Almost literally. And I remember watching it and so the first 40 minutes or so of the film, it's almost like an intimate family drama because it starts with a scientist saying, I want to make a robot that's designed purely to love. A robot that can love. And we're going to design a little boy. And we're going to give it to a family. And so they give it to this family whose real son is like in a coma, and they don't know if he's ever going to wake up. So they give him this boy, played by Haley Joel Osment, as a replacement boy. And at first he's like very robotic in his movements and his actions, but over the course of the film in general, but also just in those 40 minutes, he becomes more and more lifelike, more and more like a real boy because he develops just emotions that are very human-like. But then eventually a twist happens halfway through this first act where the boy in the coma wakes up.
He's back.
He comes back. Have you seen this movie?
Many years ago.
Yeah, the boy in the coma, he wakes up, and so now you got two kids in this house, and there's a kind of little sibling rivalry going on between them. One of them's real, one of them's not, one of them's a cripple. And so it's a fascinating thing. But it ends with basically the mother abandoning the robot boy in the woods because through a series of events they come to the conclusion that the robot boy is dangerous and they got to protect the real boy.
The real boy from the robot boy. Mm-hmm.
But the mother has developed such an attachment to him that she can't, because she knows if she returns him to the company, they're just going to destroy him, essentially kill him. But he's a robot, so they don't care. But she's developed an attachment to him, so she decides, I can't leave him, but I can't take him back home, so I'll
give you a shot on your own.
Yeah, I'll just abandon you in the woods. It's a very emotional scene when she abandons him, because the boy is like programmed to unconditionally love her. And it's just so heartbreaking to watch him just trying to rationally understand, why are you leaving me? What's going on? And that's when the film takes its first major turn, tonally. Because then we're introduced to Jude Law, who plays a sex robot.
Which is a thing. And already you think, oh my, this is a Steven Spielberg movie. We went from this whole family drama to a scene where, Jude Law is playing some Fred Astaire music and he's seducing women and he's like sexy and shit, and it's just whoa. It's very lurid. And you think, this is the same movie? And then the boy and and Jude Law get kidnapped by this guy who puts them in essentially like a monster truck rally, but for destroying robots, that kind of thing. Calls it the Flesh Farm. And I remember watching that scene, and there's even a cameo of Chris Rock. It's like Really?
Chris Rock makes a cameo as a robot who gets blown up. And I remember watching this scene and thinking, well, first of all, I watched it with my father. And, he's I think he's even more than I am, very intuitive watcher of movies. I remember him saying at that point, this part of the movie has no connective tissue with what we just saw. This is like a whole different movie, and it was. And then after that, they go to Rouge City, which is a very sexy city, to get answers. Because the boy, basically at that point, the boy's quest is to become a real boy, like Pinocchio.
Right, the Pinocchio.
My mother will love me if I become a real boy, so I got to find out how to become a real boy. And so that's his quest for the rest of the film. And then, so he goes into the city, and then Albert Einstein, or Robin Williams in the form of an Albert Einstein hologram.
Okay.
Tells them where to go.
I don't remember that.
Robin Williams. I heard his voice and I thought, that's Robin Williams. The fuck is he doing here? So there's a lot of just weird cameos in that movie, just voice acting wise. But then Jude Law and the boy go to Manhattan, which was in the future. It's been flooded. The water levels have risen.
Right.
And so Manhattan's almost completely underwater. But then they go there, and then he discovers that he's not unique. That he's not the only boy robot that's being made, and a whole lot of shit happens. And basically, he gets trapped underwater for at least a couple thousand years.
Long time.
Like 10,000 years pass, and he's frozen underwater, and then he gets thawed out by aliens or alien robots. It's not clear if they're aliens or if they're robots or if they're some hybrid, some breed of the two. But basically, they exhume him and say, there are no humans left. Only through you we have a memory of human beings. So basically, through a series of events, they're able to bring back the mother to life but only for one day, because their technology, even though they're so advanced, they haven't been able to figure out how to permanently bring someone back. And so they say, you can have your day with her, but it'll only be one day, and then she'll just be gone forever. And so this is the final part of the movie. By the way, Ben Kingsley does the voice of one of the aliens.
Naturally.
Also Meryl Streep. She does the voice of another one of the aliens.
Bizarre.
It's bizarre. She plays the fairy godmother who's like the Pinocchio fairy godmother. Right? That's what she is supposed to be.
She's that living embodiment of that thing. And so many weird cameos. And so the movie ends with him in his last day with his mom, and she loves him, and it's a sweet, tender thing. And it ends, the day ends, and she's on the bed, and he's lying next to her, and the narrator says, and for the first time, he went to that wonderful place where dreams are made. And that's how the movie ends. And it's just like, oh, wow, that was really sad. This is a sad movie. I liked it a lot.
I like it too, from what I remember.
Maybe rewatch it.
Maybe worth.
But I was watching and thinking, because Tommy said something very interesting about Bridge of Spies, which is a movie a Steven Spielberg film that came out
2014,
2015.
15.
And he said that I liked that movie a lot, but I think the best parts are the ones that are the Coen brothers parts, because they wrote the script for that movie.
Right.
And the parts that don't work are the Steven Spielberg parts. And I would say that same is true of AI, where the best parts are the Stanley parts.
Kubrick.
But I think most people have they don't know which parts are the Stanley parts. I think they confused which parts were the Stanley parts. Because tonally, there are certain things that you would expect from Steven, but not from Stanley.
Right.
The sweet stuff, the sentimental stuff. But that stuff is almost entirely Stanley stuff.
Interesting.
He wrote that stuff. Like in the movie, there's a talking teddy bear. That's something that Stanley put in the script.
Interesting. Yeah, that's not
the alien stuff. That's all. That I was not surprised about. This has got to be Stanley Kubrick.
Mm-hmm.
This has got to be the third act. Took the complete fucking turn. Like this was 2001.
Right. I was gonna say the vastness of the time expanse.
The structure of the movie is a lot like
Kubrick-ish.
2001 in that it just keeps jumping around into like a different movie. So that was, and the stuff that wasn't Stanley was the stuff like The Flesh Farm and stuff like that, where that's Steven. But it's darker, it's edgier, but it doesn't work as well. But yeah, so I wasn't surprised by that. But so yeah, overall it's a good movie. That was a good. It's the greatest Stanley Kubrick film Steven Spielberg ever directed.
There you go.
That's the best way to describe it.
There you go.
And then we get into the 2000s, which is probably the most interesting period, I think, of Steven Spielberg's career, just because of how, again, that idea of merging the two Spielbergs. You get. How does he begin the decade? Is the first film Catch Me If You Can? It might be Catch Me If You Can. I'm not positive, but that film came out in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So that
that's early.
That would make sense if that was it. Early aughts. And so that film is just a whole. That's the second film with Tom Hanks, by the way, and it's a whole heap of fun watching that movie. I saw it recently too, actually, over my Thanksgiving break. I saw that movie. And that was just wonderful. So yeah, but then you follow that up with some of his most interesting entertainment pictures, like Minority Report, and War of the Worlds, and Munich, and The Terminal, and you just think these are just weird movies. These are all odd movies that Steven Spielberg has made. They really are, and they're all good. They're all really good. I remember watching The Terminal as a boy and thinking, this is a different kind of movie. It's probably the simplest movie that he's ever made in terms of what the plot is. A guy gets trapped in an airport because he's not allowed into his home country, and so he just lives in the airport. It's so simple you couldn't think that Steven would want to direct something like that. But it's so good. And another Tom Hanks film. That's probably the third Tom Hanks film he did with him. And then I don't have a lot to say about some of his most recent pictures. The Adventures of Tintin, it was decent. Lincoln, maybe I need to rewatch it. It didn't affect me too greatly the first time I watched it. Crystal Skull is the worst of all the Indiana Jones movies, without a doubt. And there's still there are parts in that movie that I like. There's some parts that I really do dig, like the chase sequence on the college campus. I love that sequence. But yeah, it's just not enough. There's not enough great stuff in that movie. It's just tonally, it feels like a different movie than the other three, And I can only assume that has to do with the fact that George and Steven aged.
They seem to
20 years.
I mean,
they got 20 years older, so why would
Steven seems to have lost a little bit of touch with some of I guess mentality of what made some of his earlier films great. I think another good example of that is the BFG, which by all
there's no
measures
reason why
should be a spectacular match for Steven Spielberg,
and yet it feels so
very
hollow.
Inauthentic.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we talked about this how I watched it. I thought I should feel a sense of whimsy and wonder right now.
Yeah, exactly. There should be spectacle and amazement in this.
And I think part of that was just because I think he took for granted the story because the characters are not very well drawn out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the actors they all do a good job, but like the main chick, the little girl, like who the fuck is she?
Why do I care?
I don't give a rat's ass about her. There's nothing about her that's special. She's an orphan. Oh, big fucking deal. Like she's the only orphan I've ever seen in a movie.
There are lots of orphans featured in films.
Little Orphan Annie does not impress me. And so, yeah, that movie should have been much better than it was. I don't know. But I have high hopes.
Yeah,
I have high hopes for his
He's got
next
plenty
two
more.
films.
He's got plenty more on the horizon.
His next two films, I think, will be a return to form.
Ready Player One and what's the other?
The Post.
Oh yeah,
Post, which comes out earlier this later
again,
this year.
interestingly, I guess a return to two different forms.
Yeah. One is pure artistic, commercial, artistic, critical, driven film in The Post. A film about, the Washington Post trying to uncover the Pentagon Papers.
Right.
And Ready Player One, which is just an all-out blockbuster of epic proportions.
Full of nostalgia and other...
I think it could be great, but we'll see.
Spielberg favorites.
I really do think it could be a great film, but we'll see. But yeah, I guess that's all I got to say about Spielberg.
That's a lot to say about Spielberg, though, for what it's worth.
Okay, so...
Which segues well into, as accomplished and impressive and astounding as Mr. Spielberg's career has been, I'd like to discuss perhaps more interesting career. Not of any of the other creative influences on the film, but the technical advisor for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Mr. J. Allen Hynek, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, if you will, who was the technical advisor for ufology for this film.
Oh my lord!
And he's actually he's the person who initially classified the Close Encounters scale, the first, second, and third kind.
Oh wow!
From which the title obviously is derived. Now, because I'm me, and
because you're
the audience will understand this completely, I've gotta try and find a way to relate it back to the history of the city of Chicago. Fortunately for me, that's extremely easy, as J. Allen Hynek opened up the Center for UFO Studies, originally in Evanston, but now resides in Chicago. You will know it as the place that you didn't come with Tommy and I. The one.
Yeah, I remember.
Tom and I went to visit the Center for UFO Studies to look for an alien corpse that might have been thrown out in the alley in the back, the dumpster, after a day of quality specimen examination. We did not find that, but the walls did appear to be covered. The windows did appear to be covered in tinfoil, which is an interesting anecdote. And then afterwards, we all went together to see Shit Fountain, another great stop on the interesting places in Chicago tour.
And then we saw the giant wagon.
And then we saw the giant radio flyer wagon. That's right. But yeah, J. Allen Hynek led a pretty interesting life. He is one of the rare instances, or at least in my experience, rare instances of genuinely knowledgeable, not kooky people who choose to dedicate their lives to UFOs.
I will pause for 1 second to ask, is that ginger ale warm?
Well, probably is now.
I'll put it in the fridge then, but keep talking.
He started... Well, I'm right here. Oh, dear. He started his career...
Abort.
Just learning astrophysics, and then went on to work for the military, where his job was primarily to debunk UFO cases, UFO sightings. Originally through Project Sign, which became Project Grudge, and then later through Project Blue Book, which was more so aimed at debunking. In fact, at one point, I think they reached out to Walt Disney about creating animations about here's why UFO sightings are bullshit, swamp gas and stuff. But he wasn't interested.
Swamp gas.
That actually, Hynek got a lot of flack because that was the excuse he most commonly used. He'd be like, "Oh, it's swamp gas."
That's actually not even just for UFOs. That was the excuse for everything.
Whatever's
I couldn't
happening.
make it to our dog's little league game because of swamp gas.
I'd like to see you refute it though. You don't know that swamp gas didn't stop me.
I'd like to pay my income tax, but swamp gas.
Swamp gas is getting in the way.
So yeah, that was his excuse for
I didn't
just
mean
everything
to cheat on you. It was just there was some swamp gas.
The only reason I'm dying alone and lonely and poor is because of swamp gas.
That's right.
Anyway.
But anyway, after going through a slew of these, he eventually came to the conclusion that while most of it is bullshit, he believed that there were too many reliable sources of evidence to rule out the concept of UFOs. So he dedicated the rest of his life to the scientific study of UFOs, which resulted in him being the creative consultant for this film. Interestingly, fittingly, one of his children, I forget the name, young man, well, not young anymore maybe, but went on to be a special effects supervisor on such films as Predator and What Dreams May Come, for which I think he won an Oscar. But I'm not sure, but I believe he did.
For What Dreams May Come, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lovely film.
It is a lovely film. Great visual effects.
Yeah.
Good job, Hynek. Whatever your first name is, I don't remember. But yeah, I guess opens up a little bit of an interesting topic. Big topic, so we'll go through briefly. But UFOs as a concept. Begin. Your belief.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yes. Do you believe in alien life? And if so, do you believe that we've been visited? I had to talk about it. Look at the film we're watching.
I know, but... See, I want to give... the answer, the genuine answer, the honest answer would be a bullshit one, which is yes and no. In the sense that...
a bullshit answer.
It's bullshit in the sense that, no, I don't think that any complete, highly intellectual creatures have come down and have manipulated the evolution of man. I think that's ridiculous. On the other hand, I can believe that, bacteria gets transported around the galaxy a lot, and I'm sure bacteria made its way to planet Earth somehow, and it's affected our biology in some way. I can believe that. So in a way, we've been affected by intelligent life, but not in the way that people think of it, like little green men. More like microbes. That's the scientist in me saying that. The Neil deGrasse Tyson in me.
It may surprise you to hear that I generally agree.
With Neil deGrasse Tyson?
With you.
Yeah, which means you agree with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Sure, yeah. Which I guess I also agree with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Just in general, I'm usually more of a whimsy, whimsy leaning type person. But I mean, I think it's idiotic, and I think most people would agree on this, that to say that there's no intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, considering it's infinite.
Have you ever seen Cosmos, the Neil deGrasse Tyson show? Oh, I love it. And him explaining everything is wonderful. Tardigrades.
I just got his astrophysics for people who don't have enough time book. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's great. Tardigrades have been on this planet for thousands of years.
It's brilliant.
But you would never have known.
Tell me more, Tyson. Tell me more.
We think that our universe is symmetrical, but actually, the Big Bang is the result of a minuscule amount of asymmetry in the protons and neutrons of our universe.
Have I told you that that's another idea for a movie? Neil deGrasse Tyson teaming up with Jackie Chan?
No, but that's brilliant.
Oh, I think it'll be great. I can't wait. I'll call up Neil and say, Neil, I'm going to make you a star.
Time to get you out of the documentaries, man.
Time to get
you on the big, big, big screen.
Time to get you that Jennifer Lawrence pussy.
That's right. Obviously, his best cinematic appearance so far being Zoolander 2.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, what a weird cameo. But that was good. That was a good cameo. I actually really liked that movie. I know that it was not
Back
popular.
to your notes.
I liked
Now we're going off the rails talking about Zoolander 2.
I liked it, suffice to say.
So did Jodorowsky.
Did he really?
Well, he went to go see it.
And
that's for sure.
Yeah, words to say.
I go see Zoolander 2.
It's good.
I know it is stupid, but it is funny.
It's exactly what I would have expected for the sequel of that film. Another interesting subtopic to kind of bounce off of from that, that this film tackles in an interesting way, communication with alien life and the way that it's represented in films.
I don't know how
the hand signals.
I forget the noise they make. We'll find out when it happens. Every time I try to do it, I forget how to do it.
Because it feels like most of the time it's represented as they have some sort of like translation method, which is stupid. in my opinion. I was thinking about this on the plane ride when I was kind of like mulling over some thoughts about discussion topics about this. It's so interesting to me that whatever alien species always seems to have one language. When you look at human race as a species, and we have X number languages.
Yeah, but humans are cool. We're diverse and shit. Most other things aren't diverse.
Well, that's quite the assumption, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but it's the correct assumption.
Intelligent life.
Hey, let me tell you, if they weren't so homogenous, they would have fucking been here by now. All right. If they could have put their brains together in one big
well, then why aren't we
soup?
Why aren't we there by now?
Because we don't want to be there.
We absolutely do want to be there. We
want to get them to. We want them to come to us. We're lazy like that.
We've been trying since Kubrick faked the moon landing.
What is that?
I'm gonna pull out a little book reference.
Oh my lord, this guy's got a huge. Oh, it's Tesla.
It's a Tesla book, although the quote is not from Tesla.
I love how I said this guy's got a huge. And I just stop there
and then hold off. Well, I appreciate that. That's high praise. The quote actually is not from Tesla. It's from Marconi, who did developed a bunch of early wireless communication radio technologies.
Yeah, that motherfucker.
That son of a bitch. Had a really interesting theory because apparently at the time there was quite the fever to get in contact with Mars. People wanted to communicate with Mars because who doesn't? We'd love to communicate with Mars. And his theory about communication was really interesting, I thought. So I'll just read this little quote from him. Well, it is an obstacle but I don't think it is that's the right quote. It is an obstacle, but I don't think it is insurmountable. You see, one might get through some message, such as 2 + 2 = 4, and go on repeating it until an answer comes back signifying yes, which would be one word. Mathematics must be the same throughout the physical universe. By sticking to mathematical communication over a number of years, one might eventually be able to come to a common speech. It's certainly a possible concept. Interesting idea using math as like the... that just struck me. Using math, assumedly, if we've determined laws of the universe that are non-negotiable, that are determined, another intelligent species
will have come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, trying to work out the mysteries of the universe will have reached the same inevitable conclusions, and so that would be a common language between...
This is, of course, assuming that these are this alien species operates on a similar level of existence to us.
Two may not even mean the same,
The concept of two means nothing to an alien species.
Perhaps. Or perhaps it means everything.
Speaking of translating alien languages, I reminded of the film Arrival, which is a decent movie. But my favorite bit...
Most adequate.
It's a most adequate film. Like all of Denis Villeneuve's films, it's most adequate. But there's one bit that I really do like, because when she's trying to explain the significance of establishing basic communication and basic language consistencies.
Yeah, common language between...
She relays the story of the first Europeans to confront the Aborigines in Australia, and she says, they look around and they point to other things and say, what is this thing called? And they point to a kangaroo, and the Aborigines say, they say kangaroo. And so the Europeans are okay, that's what it's called. It's a kangaroo. Little did they know that kangaroo in their language meant we don't know what the hell you're saying. And I think that's the most poignant way of illustrating how language is the ultimate barrier between different peoples, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You gotta, and fuck this fruit fly in my face. But yeah, it's.
And very ignorantly, I was surprised to learn that there are about almost an equal number of sign languages as verbal languages. Real languages.
We'll call them real languages. Do you think that this is product placement, putting the disguise of these drugs as Piggly Wigglies?
That's
and
actually
Coca-Cola?
something that I wanted to discuss as well. Is I think Steven Spielberg
Baskin Robbins
is a brilliant master
of product placement,
of subtle product placement. That's not subtle at all, but people don't call it product placement
because it's just it makes sense that they would do that. Yeah, of course they would drink a cola right now.
Sure, or there's that earlier shot where the shot opens him pointing at the McDonald's sign, and then it tilts down to the McDonald's. And
yeah.
Oh yeah, he's establishing the setting here. He's going to the McDonald's, and there's the lights going out. This is very relevant.
Isn't that amazing how he can get away with that too?
Yeah,
because that's something.
He's embedded himself so much in the pop culture that when he puts stuff in there, they're like, oh, it's a cultural reference, like Reese's Pieces.
Or
I can't think of a more blatant product placement than him laying out Reese's Pieces for the alien.
Oh yeah, sure, that's true. Or how when you compare it to someone like Michael Bay,
I remember we went to go see what was that movie called?
The fourth
Age of Extinction.
Yes,
where they would have very blatant, product placement, and then we would just call them out and say, "Oh, product placement."
Mm-hmm.
There's that shot of a cola billboard for no reason, product placement, and it's just it's bad.
Yeah, it also pulls you out.
One example
He's very effective at not pulling you out, but very blatant.
One
at the same time,
example of intended product placement that didn't happen was Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. Because if you remember, the opening scene takes place in a diner.
That's right.
The diner doesn't have a name in the movie, but in the script, it was supposed to be a Denny's. And he wanted to shoot the scene in a Denny's because that's where Tarantino himself would go to, hanging out with his friends, and they talked. They'd eat at a Denny's. Which speaks very lowly of Tarantino, as far as I'm concerned, that he would enjoy the Denny's. But, do you enjoy Denny's?
Of all the chain diners, it falls very low on my totem pole.
Good man. But, how do you split diopters? I never liked that kind of shot. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so he wanted to shoot at Denny's, but he tried to get permission from Denny's, and they just said no.
Denny's had no interest in working with.
Denny's had no interest in making a movie about gangsters, talking about dicks and Madonna and all this shit inside their establishment. That was a big mistake on their part.
No, I can understand it. I think they made the right choice, long term.
See, I don't think they did, but that's up for debate.
I don't think that's what Denny's wants themselves.
I think Big Kahuna Burger got a big rub off of Pulp Fiction.
Now, what's funny?
Big Kahuna Burger. That's the Hawaiian burger joint.
Is Denny's has no problem somehow, for some reason, has no problem being associated with like the saddest place it's possible on Earth to go in the Santa Claus movie. I always wonder about that. I'm like, why would Denny's agree to this?
Oh,
it's
you're
essentially
right.
just Tim Allen shitting on Denny's for like 10 minutes, or whoever plays the kid more so shitting on Denny's for like 10 minutes of the movie.
Exactly.
It does not paint them in a great light.
You know why? Because they're idiots. Because Tarantino, in his movie, Denny's would have been seen as a great place to go and hang out.
A good place to go with your creepy buddies.
Because they thought, oh, this is such a seedy, disgusting film, it'll be bad for Denny's. Whereas with the Santa Claus movie,
family values hit,
and yet it's in the scene they shit on it.
They're just talking about how terrible Denny's is.
Denny's is full of fucking retards who have no idea how to run a business. That's what I'm saying, and that's why they deserve to be put out of business.
You should propose to Denny's that they hire you as their exclusive movie rights man.
Yeah, their PR guy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put you in the next Kevin Spacey movie.
Yeah, that'll be really good for Denny's.
Kevin Spacey really only eats at Denny's.
That's right.
If you wanna hang out with Kevin Spacey, you go to Denny's.
It's where he goes for dates.
Roman Polanski doesn't like to go to fast food places, in Europe. They don't have that many. But when he does, he goes to fucking Jiffy Lube.
Yes, that is not a fast food place.
They have sandwiches.
Do they?
They have sandwiches at Jiffy Lube.
That's sad.
I remember eating a sandwich at Jiffy Lube.
Although I will say I really appreciate the Home Depot hot dog.
Oh,
that's its own discussion. That's a very nostalgic thing.
I had this discussion the other day with someone about the Home Depot hot dog. It really is an integral part of... And I'm assuming all Home Depots around the country have it?
I assume so too, although I can't confirm that.
Because on one hand you could say, well, the hot dogs are a big deal here in Chicago. On the other hand, why would they offer it only in Chicago? It seems kind of strange. But then again, I've never asked anyone who... I've never known anyone who lived in another city or state where they had a Home Depot mentioned hot dogs. And then again, how often does
Why
Home
would
Depot,
that come up?
Why would that come up?
Why would it come up?
So we need someone to confirm that. Actually, Tommy Mitchell can confirm if they have it in Ohio. Then we'll know it's not just a Chicago thing. Do they have Home Depot hot dogs?
Tommy, in your next letter, please write to us regarding the nature of hot dogs inside of Home Depots in the state of Ohio.
I'm sure they're not great hot dogs, but whenever I have one, I'm reminded of my childhood.
Yeah, it's very satisfying, heartwarming sort of a feeling.
It's one of the many ways in which I failed to be a Chicagoan. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Because my favorite hot dog is nothing but ketchup.
Disappointment.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood would be disappointed in me too. And we also talked about how my favorite football team is the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care that much, but there were people who definitely lynch you for that here.
And my favorite pizza is Domino's.
Also disappointing. So,
I'm a disgusting...
you really don't have a lot going for you in the city prime.
And I also hate most neighborhoods in Chicago.
Yeah.
But I love this place.
but you like Dunning.
Oh, I like Dunning.
You seem to like Portage Park. Do you like Portage Park?
Portage Park is fine.
I like Portage Park.
I remember, actually, we went to a Colombian restaurant last week to get while we were getting our car fixed. Because our battery essentially died on us.
I hate that.
We had to get a replacement. But while we were waiting, we went to the Colombian restaurant and we walked by the axe throwing place.
Oh, yeah?
And with my father. And so he saw that and he said, What is this?
I'm curious what your dad's
What
comment
is
on
this?
that would be.
And I said, this is literally a place where people pay to throw axes around.
Axes at like a hay bale or something.
And he just said, oh my God.
What is this country coming to?
He shook his head in disgust at this thing. Yes, it was truly a sight to behold. It is, in many ways, it is the perfect metaphor for 21st century hipster capitalism.
Yeah, that's a pretty prime example.
Axe throwing places. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, it's the only place in all of Chicago where you can go and throw axes.
There are two. There's one also by my office. So if I want to go axe throwing after work,
it's almost like they follow you around.
If I want to come home and I want to go axe throwing, no problem. I got it covered on all bases. But yeah, absolutely. It's like that mentality of like, oh, we're all looking for just like an authentic experience. I'm so desperate for such a thing that people are willing to pay money to do something that, they would also like scoff at someone like in their backyard in like Indiana being like, oh, gross. But if I pay money for it and go to like a whatever,
that's why I like Dunning so much. It's isolated, like Bergman's Faro Island. Speaking of Bergman, I actually saw a documentary on him the other day because I couldn't go to sleep. I'm having a kind of case of insomnia lately, which is always nice. But I was watching this movie essentially called Trespassing Bergman, and it's literally just getting a bunch of world famous film directors and to his house in Faro Island and then just talking about him and how much they love him. That's the whole thing, but it actually is fun to watch. It's fun to hear. But one of the greatest parts of the movie is Lars von Trier because he loves Bergman, but hearing him talk about him is just great because he's a provocateur, he's a raconteur. He likes to make controversial, shocking statements, and I love. He says, the problem with Bergman is, he, in his old age, he was still a very horny man. He admitted to as much in his own life. So, he probably masturbated all over his house in Faro Island.
It sounds like something the director of 3 Nymphomaniac films would say.
And he was an old man, so it would probably took him. He would have to wait several days to build up enough to have a proper ejaculation.
Disgusting.
But it is impossible to imagine anything else. He was, just in a room going like jerking off like crazy.
That's disgusting. Lars von Trier is another one of those people who like...
We must make a point to remember that our heroes shit and vomit and masturbate just like the rest of us.
Seems like an interesting guy, but I would never want to spend a day with him.
It's funny because he was talking about how he always wanted to spend a day with Bergman, but Bergman never responded to any of his letters.
I'm sure that he'd want nothing to do with him.
Well, I don't know. That's the thing.
Especially
my relationship with Bergman is like with my stepfather. I wanted to know so much more, but he shut me out. and he talked about how Thomas Vinterberg, this other filmmaker, Scandinavian, he actually, he was talking to, I've seen all of Bergman's films and his TV programs and his commercials, and Thomas Vinterberg, he talks to Bergman on the phone and he becomes known as the director who speaks to Bergman on the phone. I want to talk to Bergman on the phone.
I want that to be me.
Yes, he talks about how he never got over it, how Bergman just shunned him, and it always kind of affected him. His idol just never acknowledging him.
That's sad.
It is sad.
Oh, which reminds me.
Makes me want to give him a hug almost. It's okay, Lars. And then we'll jerk off together.
Yeah. Gross.
Well, you have to find ways of bonding with people.
I guess. I finally thought of who that person I was discussing with you the other day. The guy who finally met his idol, pitched him his music project, handed him his CD. It's James Brown. I don't know why I couldn't think of James Brown.
Oh,
but it was James Brown.
You didn't mention this on the podcast though, so you want to explain this?
I'll describe this story briefly. I don't remember the name of the jazz musician, but it was this story told by this jazz musician who's a huge James Brown fan, and his life's goal was to play it someday with James Brown on a record. And he had a few good, worked hard, had a few good solo albums and group projects. Eventually got the opportunity to meet James Brown and mentioned a record that he'd done called Soul on Top, which really impressed James Brown because he's like, oh, that I like jazz and that I can play jazz. So this kid pitches a jazz combo album with James Brown and hands him a few of his CDs, and James Brown seems really excited, invites him to his Christmas party. About a month later, this kid gets a call from James Brown. He's like, basically saying to him, I listened to your record, and I really loved it. It's a really good record. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to sue you because you stole most of my music for your record, which sounds like a really crushing thing.
Yeah, they say never meet your
never
idols.
Meet your heroes, right?
So I can't wait to meet Steven Spielberg.
Never get sued by your heroes, hopefully.
I can't wait to meet Steven and be utterly disappointed when I found out he's a rapist. But he only rapes Gentiles.
Please leave him alone. Have you seen those little things that Spencer was showing me, like a little, I don't know what you call them, meme, whatever?
Memes.
Yes, a meme. On the, I think it
you're
counts.
You're not 54, Isaac.
No, I'm not sure if it counts. I think it counts as a meme.
Sure. What is it?
Where it's like another woman comes forward accusing Tom Hanks of being a really nice guy.
Yeah, that's a meme.
It's clever.
I like it is because it's set up where you look at the headline, and you think, shit.
You want to throw the phone across the room.
But then you read the rest and you think,
exactly what I.
Tom Hanks,
who's
worked with Steven Spielberg
many times,
quite a few times, is a really nice guy.
Nice guy.
Everyone loves Steven.
And a regular guy.
And he worked with Carrie Fisher in the movie The Man with One Red Shoe. Carrie Fisher, of course, who was the lead in such films as Star Wars with George Lucasfilm, who's a friend of Steven, but also films like Garbo Talks, a film with Chevy Chase. Oh, no, wait, that wasn't Chevy Chase. That was Over the Rainbow, which had Chevy Chase. The one with the dwarves, the midget people.
Helpful.
So that comedy with Chevy Chase, of course, who has been in many movies, including Nothing But Trouble, a film directed by Dan Aykroyd.
And it's got Chevy Chase?
Got Chevy Chase in it, and also Demi Moore.
Is it funny?
No, it's baffling. Dan Aykroyd's one of those guys who he's got so many crazy inventive ideas, but you can't let him do whatever he wants, or else he'll just go off the rails. Yeah, he's
Carrie Fisher, Dan Aykroyd also together in
The Blues Brothers, directed by John Landis, who was in the documentary Trespassing Bergman.
And also was featured, they showed us one of his sets at a Universal Studios tour.
The set
See how it keeps, something from Blues Brothers, the scene where they drop the car off of that unfinished expressway and it falls through the
they filmed
street.
Part of that was filmed in the studio, but also part of that was filmed in Milwaukee.
Right. The expressway itself was filmed in Milwaukee. The car falling through the street is obviously requires a set.
It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this? Okay, so John Landis, Universal Studios, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Wisconsin. Well, that's where Orson Welles is from. He's from Kenosha.
Kenosha. Halfway between Chicago and
Also,
Milwaukee.
Nicholas Ray is from Kenosha. Nicholas Ray, who made a few films, 2 of which I saw.
Which two?
I saw In a Lonely Place and They Live by Night. They were both pretty good.
Good to hear.
Nicholas Ray made some good movies. I especially love In a Lonely Place because, it's Humphrey Bogart essentially is playing a sociopath. We don't often get to see Humphrey Bogart playing
No, you
that.
do not. That is a rare treat.
Oh, it's great. He plays a screenwriter who's like kind of washed up in Hollywood.
Okay.
And he is accused of murdering this girl. And basically he has a kind of personality that would lead you to believe that, yeah, it's possible that he did actually murder this girl. And Gloria Graham, who falls in love with him, she's trying to grapple with the reality that maybe he did it, or maybe she doesn't know. Basically, it's a better version of the Hitchcock's Suspicion, where the wife doubts her husband's innocence. It's really good. The ending's really good. I saw these 2 movies as part of a week of wonders.
That's right. You saw many films.
Over the course of Thanksgiving.
Week,
really.
Week, sure.
I
That
saw
does make it less impractical. Carry on.
many films. Over 20, I think.
That's a lot.
A lot of movies. And why? Because earlier today I started working at a job for the first
Today,
time.
Right? Today was the first day, yeah.
In a while, the first time in a long time I actually am having a 9 to 5 or something like that. And so I realized the moment I start having 9 to 5 is the moment I'm not going to be able to watch as many movies anymore.
It's true.
So I tried
This was like your last hurrah.
This was like me splurging on a kind of orgy, one could say,
Yeah,
of cinema.
A cinematic orgy, huh?
Oh, I saw many a film. I saw those 2 Nicholas Ray movies. I
suppose an orgy would be more so if you just were like surrounded by 7 movies all playing at the same time.
Perhaps. I did that with Transformers.
That sounds bad.
Oh, it was the worst kind of orgy. But I saw 2 Clint Eastwood films. One called Bird, about the saxophone player Charlie Parker. My name is Charlie Parker. Tommy will get the reference. Played by Forrest Whitaker. And I also saw Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, a kind of true crime Southern Gothic movie starring John Cusack and Kevin Spacey. I've seen a lot of Kevin Spacey movies in the last week. Coincidentally. I really can't stress the coincidental part enough.
You can try.
I saw, especially in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, he plays a closet homosexual who is accused of murdering someone.
Okay.
It's so good. And there's a transsexual person in the movie. And stuff happens. There's voodoo.
That sounds groovy, actually.
Oh, it's a great movie. I'd recommend it. And what else? I also saw a Kevin Spacey movie called Consenting Adults with Kevin Kline. I think it's directed by Alan Pakula of Sophie's Choice fame.
That's not where you went first with your ironic Kevin Spacey movies that you saw?
None of them were ironic.
The film is called Consenting Adults. How's that not ironic?
Okay, I didn't think of that until you just said it.
Well, now you have.
I would not. Here's the thing. You have to understand. I love Kevin Spacey.
I know you love Kevin Spacey.
So when I watch Kevin Spacey movies, I'm not thinking about Kevin Spacey the rapist. I'm thinking about Kevin Spacey the god.
Kevin Spacey, the talented actor.
The god.
I said talented actor.
And I said god. Okay, gods had sex with women all the time, and they didn't let him know about it. Kevin Spacey is like that. Kevin Spacey is a god. Okay, so he probably was just like, he transformed into a goat, confused some young men, and then he had sex with them. All right?
I'm sure that's what happened.
Oh, I'm about 98% sure. And I saw Consenting Adults where he wife swaps with Kevin Kline, basically.
Okay.
There's a reason. It's a little bit more elaborate than that, but basically they wife swap. But then Kevin Spacey frames Kevin Kline for the murder of Kevin Spacey's wife, and so Kevin Kline is put on trial while Kevin Spacey runs away with his wife.
Sly Dog.
Oh yeah, it's Hitchcock. It's like a Hitchcock movie. Also set in the South. Also set in Georgia, I believe. Just like Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Which is a coincidence.
Coincidence. You keep using that word, and
it really is, though.
It becomes less plausible every time.
I'd never seen any of these movies. I could not have planned this. There was another Kevin Spacey movie I saw too, but that one I can't remember that one. What was that one about? Whatever. All I can remember is that Kevin Spacey was great in it, because he's great in everything he does. Actually, I had this conversation with my dad, and he kind of agrees with me. You know, they're never going to be able to replace Kevin Spacey now.
That's fair.
And I feel bad for him.
That's his fault.
Is it though?
Absolutely.
How? He dressed as he transformed into a goat.
Yeah, the goat part. That doesn't actually really make it any better though. Like if you think,
it so does. Who doesn't want to fuck a goat?
It makes me think of what's that E. Cummings poem?
Now this podcast has definitely gone off the rails now.
In Just Spring, where it's like the goat-footed balloon man whistles far and wee. It's essentially the a metaphor for the
Colombians like to fuck donkeys.
The goat-footed Pan luring innocent children to horrors and the horrors of adulthood and sin.
It's a lot like that Bob Dylan song.
You gotta be more specific than that.
Well, there really is only one song that's like that, Isaac. It's a song It's a song from the great album John Wesley Harding, an album that Tommy Mitchell has not heard because he's waiting until he's on his deathbed to listen to it. But there's a song on there called Frankie Lee, the Ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, which is very much about that. It's very much about Kevin Spacey.
There we go. Kevin Spacey has his own theme song now.
If it weren't for the fact that I know Tommy listens to this podcast, I would recite the whole song to you right now because I know the song by heart.
Okay.
I love that song. I love the way Bob Dylan sounds on that song. Frankie Lee, Judas Priest.
You just ruined that song for Tommy.
No, I didn't.
You ruined the whole song.
I said the names of the two characters.
You ruined the whole song for the poor guy. Sorry, Tommy. I guess you got to die now. So that
any more notes you want to talk about?
Yes, actually. Bringing us back on topic.
And away from Kevin Spacey.
Away from Kevin Spacey.
For now.
We were discussing earlier the various ways that people like to communicate with alien races in movies. And the way that they've chosen to do
Kevin
it here.
Spacey played an alien in K-Pax.
That doesn't matter at all. I'm done talking about Kevin Spacey.
And he was great in it.
I don't give a... Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Clark Gable...
Damn it, I shouldn't have done that.
Was in Gone with the Wind.
Yes, he was.
Gone with the Wind, which also featured Thomas Mitchell, the actor. Mm-hmm. The same year, he appeared in Stagecoach, as well as Only Angels Have Wings. And there was another film he appeared. Thomas Mitchell had a great year in 1939. 1939 was a great year for Thomas Mitchell. It was probably one of the... He was in just great movies in 1939.
Gone with the Wind, which is astoundingly still, adjusted for inflation, far and away the biggest opening weekend financially of all time.
Yeah, it's the highest grossing film ever.
It's more than double anything that's come since, including the latest Star Wars, which holds the record without adjustment for inflation.
Yeah, no one gives a rat's ass. Again, what you have to ask is not the actual box office, but attendance numbers. Attendance is what matters. Attendance, because back when ticket prices were much fucking lower and they still somehow got these huge numbers, what does that tell you? People went to the theater again and again to watch these movies. Mm-hmm. Attendance is what matters here, but people don't look at that. Anyway, we were talking about K-Pax and Kevin Spacey.
We were not talking about either of those things. We were talking about how they use hand signals to communicate with the aliens in this film.
All right. Yeah, continue.
Which is largely developed through the character played by Bob Balaban. Great actor.
Well, it's him and Francois Truffaut.
Right.
Sure.
That's why I said largely developed by the character played by Bob Balaban. Of course, I bring up Bob Balaban instead of Truffaut because I'd love to relate it back to Chicago history. Don't know how I could. Oh, wait, that's right. Bob Balaban is the descendant of the Balaban and Katz Empire, the Chicago movie palaces of the 1900s up until, well, yeah, I guess the majority of the 20th century.
Isaac,
That information is so shocking. I need a ginger ale to swallow that truth.
Drink it up, my friend. I have the great privilege of living within about a mile, you'd say, for like the Congress Theater to here, even.
Yeah, sure. I guess you could say that.
Within about a mile of 4 movie palaces.
Yeah, 4 of the best movie palaces in the whole town.
4 of the only ones still standing, to be honest.
And 2 of them don't even play movies.
3 of them don't even play movies. The Portage Theater, which is not a Balaban and Cats theater, is right across the street. It's been turned into a music concert venue.
Oh yeah, tell me more.
Then there's the Congress Theater, which is a Balaban and Cats theater, but was closed down in 2014.
Can I open it?
Yeah, it's all openable. Then we've got down on Irving Park a little ways, the Patio Theater, beautiful theater, not a Balaban and Cats, but the only one that still plays movies.
Isn't that amazing? The Patio.
I know.
That plays movies. Anyone who's from Chicago and knows the Patio knows why that's so ridiculous.
It is the furthest out and least well-managed theater in the history of movie theaters, and yet it still runs. And for that, we're grateful. Someday, Fabricio and I will get rich and buy it.
We will buy the Patio.
And
we will play nothing but Kevin Spacey movies all day long.
Yeah, it's Kevin Spacey Fest every year, every week.
It'll be Spacey Fest, Polanski Palooza.
That's good, actually.
And Woody Allen Appreciation.
No, absolutely not.
A retrospective.
Put my foot down on Woody Allen.
Polanski's fine, but Woody Allen's the problem.
I put my foot down on Woody Allen.
We have a coat.
These are all jokes.
I'm not joking.
I know you're not. That's what concerns me.
That's why we're still friends.
Exactly. And that's why we have such good banter on our podcast here. Whoa! It begins. And that beautiful sound effect is compliments of the ginger ale bottle that we just
Good Lord. I didn't think it would do that.
I had no idea it was that shook up. In fact, I had no idea it was shook up at all.
Watch it. It's going to hit the edge.
We've got it. We've got it under control.
No, we don't.
Much like an alien invasion. This is a sensitive matter.
You want to get a rag.
Must be handled properly.
You want to get a rag, otherwise it's going to make it sticky. You don't want your table to be sticky.
I do not. This is true. I guess my wife's not coming home yet.
Oh, yeah?
It's well past her bedtime.
I guess she's over...
She's spending the night with Tiffany, which is cool.
Oh. Would you be offended if I used the term whoring out?
Sure, that's fine.
Oh, okay, good.
What are we using that in reference to?
I thought we were using it in reference to your wife is whoring out.
Oh, then no. In that case, no.
Okay, so I won't use it. She doesn't listen to this, right?
No, she does not.
Okay, but Tommy does.
Tommy does.
Hey, Tommy!
Tommy will stand up for my wife. Tommy, defend my wife.
Well, I meant it in the loveliest way.
Explain.
Whoring out in the sense that she's out and about, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And she is a woman of great sexual attraction.
Sure.
Like Claudette Colbert.
Exactly. That's exactly what I would have said.
And because of that, it's impossible not to notice her as she pronounces herself across the streets of the city.
Yes.
As such, many men will
have
become
the proclivity to notice.
And will
magnetism.
offer her, will make sexual advances and offer her a weekend worth of...
In Milwaukee.
A weekend in Milwaukee, and all expenses paid, like Pretty Woman. Uh-huh. And so, whoring about.
All right, that's a terrible explanation, but I'll go with it.
Also, to quote Kevin Spacey, it's nothing personal, I just hate women. Actually, that's not a Kevin Spacey quote. That's not a Kevin Spacey quote. That's a quote from someone who impersonated Kevin Spacey. Did we ever talk about that?
No.
Yeah, didn't I show you that?
I don't think so.
Oh, I did not show the video of the guy who did the masterclass videos?
No, you didn't. I don't remember him mentioning hating women.
Oh, yeah, there's that, what's the great bit?
I just remember the congratulations Brian bit.
Oh, yeah, well, no, there's another part where he, like, talks down to a woman. He says, it's nothing personal. I only hate women.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it's great. I love... That's probably the best impersonation out of all of them in that video. Well, is the Kevin Spacey one.
By far.
That one, and the Michael Caine one's impressive, just because it really... The first time I watched it, I thought that was Michael Caine. What you don't see is when you hold the cigar up to the camera, it looks like a sausage. In fact, anyone's got a sausage pack, and then they take it out. Look, looks like a box of cigars.
I know why it does. That's something to do with lenses or something.
It's lens or something. Yeah, it was a great video.
George, where have you hidden the Mona Lisa? God,
Great videos.
Now it's wet.
Anyway, about Balaban and Cats.
Oh, yeah. Cats? The musical?
Cats. Well, K-A-T-Z. So
Oh,
I guess,
okay. Yeah, keep...
The Prussian version of the Cats musical.
Ah, Prussians. I love
Prussians.
Did you have some ginger ale?
I did not.
That explains why. That explains why it.
Yeah, it was brand new to the world, I guess. One of their amenities that they developed for their customers. I think I may have told you this before.
Tell me.
But it's an interesting one, so I'll repeat it.
Please do. Do you have ice?
No, actually,
that's fine.
No. One of the amenities that they
we need to get a bar up in here
for their guests was like a child drop-off service, essentially, where you drop off your child and they would go play while you enjoyed the movie. But eventually, the children will cry, as children are wont to do.
As is their wont, yes.
And oftentimes there's an inability of someone, not the parent of the child, to console them effectively. So what they started doing is they would write a message on a translucent material and put it in front of the projector as the film was still running to inform the parent, "Oh, Mrs. Donafy, your child is crying. Please go see her and make it stop."
That's good.
And interestingly enough, that invention, or that small little problem solver that they came up with, eventually led to the ticker tape, because Balaban and Cats later opened up a TV station in Chicago, and they would write headlines on a translucent piece of film.
Yeah.
And they would just kind of crank it so it would run horizontally over the bottom of the camera to include additional information. So in a way, they're some of the forefathers of motion graphics that we enjoy in television today, all because of crying children. Which there's a whole interesting. That's something I'd like to do, and trace the evolvement of child care throughout history, because apparently at the Columbian Exposition,
which one? Chicago
1893 World's Fair, they had a child coat check system, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You go drop off your child and receive a claim check number. Astonishingly, as far as the records show, only one child was just left and abandoned.
Only one.
Which is a surprise.
And he was also the one boy who was also a robot. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it would haunt him for the next several thousand years.
Yeah, yeah. Well past today's time.
Today's times, yes. So that's an interesting anecdote in Balaban Cats' history, Bob Balaban's history, Chicago's history. To bring it back to the film, they also at the theaters developed a complicated hand signal language for the ushers to communicate with each other in the dark, so that they wouldn't have to interrupt the film by screaming across the room at each other. So they developed an interesting little language of hand signals specifically for the ushers. Perhaps that had an influence for Bob Balaban when he was doing his, I presume, method acting.
Yes.
For his brilliant performance in this film,
Bob
Close
Balaban
Encounters
is
of the
a
Third
method
Kind.
actor. Yes.
To a very T, yes. I like Bob Balaban. I can't think of anything he's done that I haven't liked.
Did you ever see Catch-22?
No, actually I haven't.
He's pretty great in that. He has a small role, but very important.
All of those, Mighty Wind and dog show movies.
Yeah, Bob Balaban's great.
Spectacular. Spectacular.
See, he wasn't supposed to be a translator. He's a cartographer.
Yes. And yet,
Francois Truffaut.
When duty calls, you step up to the plate.
So has all of this so far been a lot like the version you've seen?
Yeah, it seems like some of the UFO sequences are extended.
There haven't been any. What do you mean? There haven't really
the
ones with
the chase scene with the cop and the flying lights.
Oh, that was longer.
Yeah, but not significantly different from what I can tell. I haven't been obviously paying super close attention.
The ending is the part that is the most pronounced.
Yes.
Because there's just a lot more footage.
That's right.
You'll notice that.
I'll look for it. Apparently, J. Allen Hynek has a small cameo at the end. I'll try and point it out if I remember.
He's one of the aliens?
He steps forward with a pipe in his mouth and looks in disbelief at the.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm definitely gonna be looking for him.
I'll keep my eyes out for it and point it out when it pops up.
Man, let me tell you, man.
Tell me, man.
If only Kevin Spacey was in this movie.
It's terrible.
All right.
Speaking of inappropriate things.
Oh yeah.
I know one of the things that you and I have been trying to develop for the podcast are some segments that we can throw in every here and then.
Because we need segments. We just rant.
Otherwise we get completely lost. So one of the segment ideas I had of a more
So this is a segment in of itself. The segment is segment ideas.
Pitching a segment.
Segment ideas. Boom. Okay. The segment has started.
this segment, I'll pitch these segment ideas.
Okay.
Of the more salacious nature, coming up with porn parody titles.
Porn parody
for the
titles.
film that we're currently watching. I came up with 3, but only one of them is particularly clever. Mm-hmm. I will read them now.
Please do.
To the air. And then if you have any that jump to mind, please feel free to jump in.
I remember in senior year of high school, during one session of biology class, maybe it wasn't biology, but one of those classes, I literally spent the whole class just developing porn parodies titles
for various films.
Yeah, I got a good list going. We'll see if I can remember.
Did you get any for Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Did you?
Well, I did when I was coming up with this list.
Well, then tell me.
Yeah, I mean specifically for the film, it was my intention. So first, I'll lay out the rules that I gave myself for the porn parody names.
Tell me what your rules were.
The rules I gave myself, as opposed to going for the more like obviously dirty words.
So wait, are we in a segment within a segment right now?
Yes, we are.
Oh my lord!
It's pretty beautiful. The idea was to be more of a slave to the consonants, assonants, and diction of the title.
So onomatopoeia.
Right, yes. Trying to match
assonance, yes.
The assonants and consonants as much as possible. As opposed to trying to come up, I could do Close Encounters of the Penis kind, but
yeah, that's not
pretty
very
weak.
Yeah.
My first one is still pretty weak. It's pretty generic. Close Encounters of the Dirty kind. It's got that assonance, but it's not my finest. But that's all I could come up with in terms of like generic sort of broad stroke porn parody names. So these next 2 will appeal to 2 very different and very small niche fetishes. Mm-hmm. My second one being Gross Encounters of the Girdled Mimes. The story of 2 lesbian mimes wearing girdles who are kind of filthy with each other.
I want to see that. I really do.
And
I want to see how it relates to this.
Yeah, exactly. That's the scriptwriter's problem.
They built mud castles or something. I don't know.
And the third and final one that I came up with is Colossal Erections of the Furred Kind, which is for people with furry fetishes who also like extremely large penises.
Wow.
I was pretty happy with that one, actually.
Well, look at you, Isaac. You really thought about this.
I put some work into these. I spent about 6 to 8 hours collectively on these 3 names.
So, Spencer, are you sure she just hasn't left you?
Perhaps.
She's left you for Tommy?
I wouldn't be upset about that. Are there any that I obviously
Well, I don't know any for Close
time and
Encounters, but now I feel like I should come up with one.
You should come up with one. Since I didn't warn you, you get to choose from.
Well, I mean, I think of that one. I remember ones I come up with it before. The easiest one being Star Whores.
Yes.
Revenge of the Syphilis.
Okay. I've not heard that before. That's solid.
There's also Attack of the Bones.
Mm-hmm.
The Phantom Penis is pretty obvious.
Really just screams out at you. Absolutely.
What else is there? There's also Midnight in Paris.
Just Midnight
in Paris.
Yeah, that works.
That works very well. It really does. The title works by... Okay, what else did I have? There were other ones, too. Pulp Friction, obviously, is a good one.
Solid.
That's a solid one. I'm not the first one to come up with that one, I think. But at the time, I thought I was.
Brilliant. Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
I think I may have discussed this with you before, but there's a particular blog that's very amusing to read every now and then for me, of like the best non-pornographic scenes in pornographic movies. My personal favorite being the Edward Penis Hands scene, where he attempts to eat spaghetti with his gigantic penis hands.
Yeah,
it's very amusing.
There's a great one where, and I mean, it is a pornographic scene, but it didn't start off that way. It's a scene with Lisa Ann, the great porn star Lisa Ann, who's most famous for impersonating Sarah Palin. At least at this point. And there's a scene where she's like, this dude's in a tub, right? He's just taking a bath.
As one is wont to do, yeah.
And she just shows up, and she's like a lifeguard, and he's saying, "Lady, what are you doing in my house?" And then she says, and then she was going, "Shark in the water." There's no shark in my bathtub. And it's just this really funny little bit.
That's weird.
It's so, yeah, you should watch. I think, good. You know what? I know for a fact I put it on your Facebook page.
Of course you did, because that's, your, what do you call it, your third best communication method with Alan? Is just by posting at each other on my Facebook wall.
Yeah, exactly. Which we haven't done enough of lately, but we should do more of. Because I think after a certain point, I stopped because I think I went as far as I could go.
You've made my parents think I'm some sort of monster, and that's okay.
You see, you don't know that, though, because you haven't seen what we put on there.
No, but I've been told by my parents that they think I'm a monster.
They told you that?
Essentially.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
What kind of weird shit are you getting up to in Chicago?
See, it's so funny because it's so funny because the only person who doesn't show up on your Facebook page is you.
Yeah, that's true.
If you at least came to defend yourself.
I don't know what's there. I'm not sure.
But no, you just let us have our way with your Facebook page. That's really, we're worse than Harvey Weinstein. We've raped your Facebook wall. We really
repeatedly and unapologetically.
Unapologetically.
I don't like it.
There's this great Cyanide and Happiness GIF that I think Alan put on there, or maybe I don't forget who did it. A lot of the times I forget who did what first. But there was one that said, when someone tells me to go fuck myself, and it literally shows one of those little figures fucking a mirror.
Gross.
It's great. So that's on your wall.
That's part of it.
There's also the song All Stars by Smash Mouth, but entirely in the C note. So the whole song is just the C note.
Who wants to hear that?
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. The whole song's terrible. Like that. So that's one of the things I put on there. I put some other stuff on there, but I need to start doing it again, clearly, because it's been too long. I
guess so.
It's been too long, and I think you've earned it, champ.
I don't like that.
Oh, here comes the UFO.
Here we are, UFO arriving.
This is the little UFO.
According to the expansion of J. Allen Hynek's Close Encounters scale, this would technically be Close Encounters of the fifth kind.
Yeah, what makes it... can you classify the scales for me?
If I can remember correctly. The first kind is a visual sight. Second kind is that there's some sort of physical manifestation, like electrical disturbance, whatever, what have you. Animals being freaked out.
The third kind is the actual...
Third kind is seeing an alien life form. And then there were expansions beyond that with fourth kind is abduction. Fifth kind is experimentation. Sixth kind is impregnation, something like that. And
man, I want to see those movies. I want to see Close Encounters of the Sixth Kind.
Of the Sixth Kind? Well, there's a porn parody name for you.
Actually, there is a movie called Demon Seed, where a woman gets raped by an alien.
There's a lot of
great movies.
There are a lot of accounts like that, like the UFO documentaries, which I do enjoy watching, even though I'm not so sure about it.
To quote Werner Herzog, "Why is it that all the women who have been abducted by UFOs are all over 300 pounds?"
Has he actually said that?
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
Well, maybe not. Maybe 300 pounds was something, not, but overweight. Yes.
That's funny. Maybe that's the proper childbearing size.
Maybe there's something to that. Maybe these women want it. Maybe they've been asking for it. They asked for it. They asked for the alien.
You stop.
They asked for the alien abduction.
I'd like to take this opportunity to recite our disclosure. that the opinions expressed in this podcast
by Fabricio Barral
may not reflect the actual beliefs of the participants.
Of Isaac Carlson. That's really what you're saying, you know. That's all you have to say. You're basically saying that what Fabricio Barral says is not what I believe.
Don't hold me responsible for the things
because
that
there's only two people doing this
in the podcast that we make together.
And you're only explaining yourself to one person.
I don't want to be lumped in with him. That's all I'm saying.
You should just love our friendship.
Another great idea for a segment that I've had.
Oh right,
it's one that we've kind of done. It's one that we've kind of done anyway. We just haven't been official about it, which is pitching a great idea that we'll probably never follow through on. My favorite example so far being the Pazuzu and Bagul show.
Oh yeah, we have so many.
There's hell to pay.
There is hell to pay,
which is a great idea, I think. So
I agree.
We can do this one of several ways. We can just throw out ideas, or we can do one of those like story build things where like you say a sentence of an idea and we go back and forth on little plot elements.
Okay.
Coming up with an idea inspired.
So an idea for like a sitcom or something like that? Or for anything?
Whatever, I guess. I was thinking inspired by Close Encounters, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay. Oh, inspired by Close Encounters? Okay. So, a show where there's an alien spaceship that goes around and abducts women, and then they wake up like naked in the field and think, I think I was abducted by aliens.
Right.
But then we find out that the UFO is actually just the mobile apartment unit of Roman Polanski and Woody Allen, who go on crazy adventures together in space. And we'll call it Close Encounters of the legally questionable kind.
Close Encounters of the 18th kind.
Close Encounters of an objectionable kind.
Yes. That's a great idea. I love the pitch.
And we'll present it as a family-friendly show for all, rated G.
Sponsored by Walmart.
Sponsored by Walmart and Denny's.
Yes, and Denny's will be featured heavily in this film.
It's
going to be 80% Denny's.
Every episode will end with Roman and Woody going to a Denny's. No, I think I love the pancakes or something. And Roman just going because he's Polish, and for some reason
I guess that's what Polish people sound like.
Yeah, I guess I can't do Roman's voice. No.
I guess that's.
Did I tell you that I'm reading a book by Peter Bogdanovich? Another book by Peter Bogdanovich?
You did not. What's this
about
Peter? Apparently, he's got a lot of books.
He does.
He's a historian.
This one called "This Is Orson Welles," and it's just an entire book of interviews he did with Orson Welles.
How is it?
Oh, it's great. Orson Welles has got a lot to say.
Now, there's a man with a good impersonable voice.
Well, it's hard to do.
Yeah, I can't do it, but it's a good one. The way Matt Groening has tackled it is very similar to Vincent Price.
Yeah, we've talked about this. Maurice LaMarche, who does great impersonations, but his Orson Welles is pretty much just Vincent Price.
Just Vincent Price. Mm-hmm.
Rosebud. Yes. Rosebud frozen peas. Oh, yes. They're even better raw. That's great stuff. Yeah, Orson Welles had he had a rich baritone of a voice, and he also had a bellowing voice. It's impossible. That's why it's impossible to do an impersonation of that, because you would literally need the widest diaphragm ever to be able to pull it off, and you would need to have such a rich baritone. Although I think he naturally had a voice of a tenor. I'm not quite sure. Maybe that's why his voice is so distinct.
Okay.
If you like Campbell's, you'll love Campbell's chicken noodle soup.
It's got a lot of tremolo in there.
There is.
Lots of vibrato.
Oh yeah, it's terribly difficult to do. I envy not the person who tries. Actually, Peter Bogdanovich does a decent Orson Welles. It's not great. To quote Jack Benny, actually, to quote Peter Bogdanovich quoting Jack Benny, well, it's a little broad, but you get the idea.
Sums it up.
Yep. See what I did there? I did an impersonation of a guy who did an impersonation.
Strangely, well, I guess not strangely. That's what I'm more effective at. Like, I do a great
impersonation
of Andy Samberg impersonating this person.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah, I guess it's easier with that degree of separation. Here's one of Steven Spielberg's variety of UFO related films. Which do you find most visually impressive?
Okay, so the UFO related films are this one, E.T., War of the Worlds.
Those are the three I was thinking of. I'm sure there may be others.
I mean, there are aliens in AI.
Sure, but are there UFOs?
They're giant cubes that they fly around in.
I guess that's something. Sure, we'll say those four then.
They're giant cubes. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I'm just trying to think if there are any other movies where there are aliens. There are aliens in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and there is a UFO in
You're right.
in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Don't remind me. But you're right. There is.
You know, both things. That's actually not the worst part of the movie, though.
No, it's not.
The effect, because when you consider that in the first movie they discover the Ark of the Covenant and ghosts.
Yeah, I guess my complaint isn't as much with the nature
and in Temple
of
of
the
Doom
aliens,
they try to summon a demon
god.
Done. And in the third film, they literally find the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
And they find a knight who's been there for like nearly 900 years just guarding the Holy Grail. You think this is all really ridiculous, you know? So the idea of aliens is not so much
isn't
for
the problem.
Far-fetched. It's everything else around that.
It's the way that it's executed.
Basically, what we're saying is that Harrison Ford should have murdered more people.
Absolutely.
I think
it's astonishing that he didn't murder more people.
It really is one of those examples of how it's amazing how the guy who did Jurassic Park could fail with something like this, because the reason why it fails is just because it feels like a cartoon. Oftentimes, when you think about how a simple scene like in Raiders where he fights the Nazi with the plane just spinning around them, and then he gets caught in the propeller, and that's how he dies. But then and that's like so brutal and so visceral. Or one of the most famous scenes in any of the movies where literally a guy's like trying to rush him with a sword. I have no time for this. He just takes out a gun and shoots him point blank. He just walks off nonchalant. You think
because he has diarrhea.
Because he doesn't give a shit. And yet you compare that to a scene in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where they're on two jeeps riding through the jungle, and they're having a sword fight on top of the two jeeps while like playing hot potato with the skull, and you think this is ridiculous. This is not believable at all. What? Perry, what the fuck are you talking about? It was and then the fact that scene ends with them literally running off the cliff, hitting a tree, and the tree somehow breaking their fall when they hit the water, and no one dies. I think this is a Looney Tunes cartoon now. And
that whole bullshit with the refrigerator, not even mentioned, but yeah.
Even the refrigerator is not the worst part. It's just it sets the tone for a film that is dangerously not promising.
It does not have to have rules. You can have ridiculous rules, but you have to have rules.
I love hearing the story backstage about how George was trying to convince Steven as to how it's possible to survive a nuclear blast inside a fridge.
No, I haven't heard this. Please share.
Oh, it was because that was one of the things that was George, the nuclear refrigerator thing. And Steven was like, "Oh, I don't know, George. I don't know about that." And George literally went out of his way to... Oh, no, I hit your foot again? Jeez, this cat. He went out of his way to discuss the science of it. And he got, experts in the field. It's like, see, because if there's a good chance, because if he's in the refrigerator and the blast comes in a certain way, and there's only like a 50% chance he would actually die of a broken skull inside the fridge. And he literally made an effort to really explain how it could work, how it's actually possible to survive nuclear holocaust inside of a refrigerator. And Steven finally relented and said, "Okay, George, we'll put it in."
George,
yay!
What a triumph.
That scene does not bother me the most. It just bothers me how it's a scene that illustrates how little the film cares about life and death. In the other films, it always felt like, even if it was ridiculous, the movie plots themselves, the characters took things seriously. Because, Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, it really does take the sting out of a life and death situation.
It takes the sting
from the first scene too. I mean, obviously that it's kind of a movie trope that like you can run and dodge, like heroes dodge bullets. But that scene is a grotesque example of it.
There's a limit, yeah.
With a man running on a single beam.
See? Do you remember
in
this?
A straight line. No, I don't.
You don't remember this? You don't remember the shot of the UFO?
No.
Do you think that's just because it's been so long? Or?
Yeah, I'm sure that's in the theatrical version. But it's gorgeous. See, I would say that this is my favorite visual representation of Spielberg's movies. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's exactly. Like it's the most visually impressive, despite being the oldest.
Oh, you think this is his best? This is his best movie?
No, best visual graphic, like alien visual graphics.
Oh, okay.
Despite being the oldest technology.
Okay, I see what you mean now. Sure, yeah, I guess I can believe that.
He can believe it.
Wait till you see the aliens. Did they show? I don't remember them showing the aliens in the theatrical. Did they do that in the theatrical? They showed the aliens.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Explicitly?
I think so. Seem to remember seeing aliens.
Let's watch.
Let's watch as these aliens come in. Let's keep our eyes open for J. Allen Hynek.
He might have already showed up.
He might have. He might have. There has been quite a large amount of time now of the UFOs approaching.
Yeah, this UFO approach scene lasts like 40 fucking minutes.
It's extensive.
It really is, because it's first they send out the 3 emissary ships, and then they send out a mini UFO, and then this UFO.
Then the big guy.
So yeah, it takes them a while to get there.
I remember because I saw E.T. before I saw this, and I remember my dad would described it to me multiple occasions as the prequel to E.T., which is not a very accurate description, but...
How does that go? I gotta remember that, how that... Wait. Go, do your thing again. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Do the hand thing.
Give us the hand motions.
Actually, I remember when Steven Spielberg was on inside the actor studio with James Lipton. James brought up how your father was a computer scientist, your mother was a musician, and how do the humans communicate with aliens in Close Encounters? And Steven said, fitting. "You know, I never had a perfect answer before until you said that, but thank you."
That's pretty brilliant.
Yeah,
very fitting,
isn't it? Just.
I very much enjoy Futurama's gag of this, where alien spacecraft is sending out musical signals that they come up with a response to, and it turns out to just be some guy, like some alien hitting like the fob on his spaceship keys, trying to find where he left his car after a night of drinking. Very, very Matt Groening.
Yeah. I can only imagine what Francois Truffaut was thinking in the scene. I am trying to make great... that's not how he sounds, but... great works of art, and I am appearing in this shitty... I wonder how he felt about Spielberg. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How did he feel? Tommy, tell us.
Tommy, give us the lowdown
on how, whether or not Truffaut and Spielberg got along.
If they esteemed each other as colleagues.
Did they have some beef? Because Spielberg loved Truffaut if he hired him to be in this movie, but was it the other way around?
Did it go both ways? The world may never know, but Tommy might know already. So
Tommy probably knows, and he's not here.
So we need answers.
I talked to Tommy recently because he came back.
Once he got back on the mainland
from Italy, yeah. I talked to I was with Nick, and we called Tommy up.
What were you guys doing? Just hanging?
Yeah, we were just hanging out.
That's great. I'd love to see him again soon.
Nick?
Yeah.
Nick would like to see you again too.
Excellent.
Maybe not Alan.
Maybe not Alan. And do we have any more news as to whether or not he's coming back to the city soon?
Oh, you mean Tommy?
Alan.
Oh, no, I'm not sure.
Regrettably, I'm losing hope on Tommy.
I'm not.
I have nothing. I think I have a new hope.
Good. You hang on to that. Someone needs it.
Oh, yeah. He will fail in New York, and he will come
I can only hope that he fails. I can only hope that he crashes and burns.
You hear that, Mitchell?
That's what we're dreaming
No
for.
Mitchell ever amounted to anything in the history of something Valley.
Sure.
You've seen Back to the Future, right?
Yeah, but I don't know the reference.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of
Blank Valley.
Of the Sun Hill Valley, San Fernando Valley, something like that.
And no Thomas Mitchell has ever amounted to anything. Oh, wait. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
93 was a great year.
1939.
39.
Was a great year for
Thomas Mitchell. According to Fabricio.
According to the world of cinema, Thomas Mitchell had a great year in 1939.
39 year.
All right, you can't really argue with Stagecoach.
It's funny because I think I told you I'd gone on IMDb at one point to search all of our names just to see how far you would have to climb up, and we would each have to climb up in like the ranking of other people who've done work with our same names.
Yeah.
Tommy, you're screwed. There are too many
Thomas Mitchells.
Accomplished Thomas Mitchells in the history of cinema. Alan Marshall, you're obviously also screwed because your name is two very common names.
Yeah, there ain't no Fabricios.
Yeah, there were like two others of me, and we're about equal. They have like maybe 3 projects.
So you can pretty much, if you wanted to.
I'd be okay. I can swing it.
Yeah,
and then you're.
Oh, I'm solid.
You're fine.
I'm solid.
Fabricio Barala's okay. I was surprised by how many similar ones there are, though. There's a Fabricio Barale.
Well, I'm sure they all like have Z's instead of C's, and they all have
like E's.
They're more Italian. Yeah.
But yeah, you're in good shape, my friend.
Oh,
so
yeah.
at least you've got that going for you.
Of course.
Your Google search term will come up more readily.
See, I told you if you
Thomas
didn't take
Mitchell
a rag,
will.
the table would get sticky.
What can you do?
Get a rag.
It's too late. I'm not going to interrupt the podcast to go wet a rag and wipe the table.
We did it anyway.
It'll be unstuck when it's unstuck.
This is why your wife is not sleeping with you.
I guess not. Yeah, I guess she's not coming home. What can you do? Oh, there he is. No, that's not him. Yeah, that is. Well, no.
Oh,
yep, there he is.
There he is.
Thought that was him. So that was just J. Allen Hynek. We saw him. He has the pipe. Puts it in his mouth.
He's got a pipe, you know. He's got a pipe.
Gotta wonder if that whose call that was. Like, you'd look good with a pipe in your mouth, or he's like, I'd love to step on, but I would like to have a pipe in my mouth. So, this is because obviously there's the theatrical cut, the director cut, which we're watching, and then a bunch of other little re-release, well, like 3 or 4 other re-releases, including one 2 months ago.
Really?
This
A
September,
Blu-ray?
the 4K remaster. You and I had talked about that because they were put it back in theaters.
I wish I'd seen that.
And you and I were both talking about how we wanted to go see it in theaters because it's great. It's obviously like a spectacle of a movie, so I'm sure it's a pretty spectacular experience on the big screen.
But we didn't see it.
Regrettably, neither one of us did anything about it. Oh, the kid's back. Yay.
Well, he's got to be somewhere.
And the encounter of the 5th kind is becoming an encounter of the 2nd kind once more. Maybe it'll go all the way to the 1st kind.
Are you suggesting that Woody Allen touched that kid?
That's exactly what I said.
Oh.
Yeah?
I swear I didn't do anything. He was like that when I found him.
See, there's a problem. I guess that's a problem for Woody Allen, too. It's just like, even when he's just talking, he just sounds like he's done something wrong.
Well, that's only because Woody
nature.
Allen is preoccupied with terribly macabre things like death and tragic things like that. So he just kind of always sounds miserable.
Sounds like he's up to no good most of the time.
I love hearing him talk about girls.
He's got a very punchable face. Yeah, you've related some of it. Please, for our audience.
Well, when he was on Dick Cavett, he once talked about, from a very young age, I always knew that girls were different, that boys were nice to hang out with, but girls, were great to smell and to stroke, and...
Terrible.
It's not terrible, though.
Terrible.
He realizes as a kid.
As a child.
So did I. Woody Allen and I have a lot in common, Isaac.
In his childhood, he sees his future.
Woody Allen and I both have an insane obsession with death. Woody Allen and I both want to date women who have widely different ages from us.
Although in opposite directions.
Opposite directions for now.
At the time being.
But wait till I get older. Actually, I like the idea of saying, for now, saying that I like people thinking I like women who are older. But I'm saying, no, I don't like women who are older. I like women of a very specific age.
And it's just going to stay that way
It's going to stay that way forever. So when I'm that age, then you'll think it's normal. But then when I'm 20 years older, I still like women of that age.
Still that same.
Then you'll think it's... But I'll say, but I'm just consistent.
There's a great joke to that end in an episode of Frasier where he's reminiscing about...
Frasier is?
Yeah, Frasier's reminiscing about losing his virginity to his piano teacher at the time, who was a good 20 years older.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually he's overcome with guilt and goes to speak with her at the end of the episode. And it's like, yeah, maybe we can pick up where we left off now. And then she goes off on a date with a 19-year-old. She's like, I didn't like 40-year-old men then. Still don't like them now.
That's great.
Great joke.
Oh, here come the aliens.
The big reveal. Finally, the close encounter of the third kind. So this is the third kind. It's interesting because they go to the fourth kind before they go to the third kind.
Well, I don't think they understood the kinds of encounters there were.
Clearly not. Well, J. Allen Hynek did. He created them. Spooky alien. It's like that awkward thing when like you go all the way before you make it to second base.
Is that possible?
It's exactly. Of course, it's possible. Second base is boob grabbing, right? It's still the standard.
Oh, is that what that
base.
is?
It's still the standard second base, is it not?
Oh, I thought second base was anal.
Oh, well, yeah. In Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah, in Wisconsin.
Those are the Wisconsin standards.
Or as we like to call it, the Ted Bundy state.
I wasn't going by Wisconsin rules, though.
The Jeffrey Dahmer
My
state.
apologies. Is he also Wisconsin?
He's from Wisconsin.
Of course he is. Do you have any interest in that movie, my friend Jeffrey? Have you not seen the trailers for that one?
No. What's that?
It's based on a graphic novel written by a guy who went to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer, talking about going to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer, called My Friend Jeffrey. And it looks interesting.
Who plays Jeffrey?
I do not know.
Who plays the other kid?
I have no idea.
Who's directing?
No clue.
So, it sounds like you're not that interested.
I am interested.
Yet you know...
I saw the trailer and I was like, I'm interested in
Yet
seeing
you know
this film.
none of the principles.
I do not. They were not recognizable names to me. You might recognize them. I did not. And if I don't already recognize your name, you got a 50-50 shot of it sticking in my head this time.
These aliens take their sweet old time, don't they?
They really do. They've got an elaborate dance worked out here.
Yeah, take your photos, bitch.
Nice. Zoom lens. That's good. It's a nice touch. It's kind of a crappy camera, though. I mean, even for the time, kind of a crappy camera to take for... If your intention is to snag some alien shots.
So these are all from the same planet as Kevin Spacey, K-Pax.
K-Pax.
These are the K-Pax kids.
Gross. They're funky looking.
Like K-Pax.
Just like K-Pax, I guess. Just like K-Pax.
Do you even know what's going on at this point?
This part especially not.
So I guess
Some
they're...
sort of cult
These
situation?
astronauts... No, these astronauts are being... They're going to go on the ship, I think.
Oh yeah, that's right, but they're not allowed on.
What do you mean they're not allowed on?
They're not allowed on, ultimately. They don't get to fly away.
No,
Just
they
the
do.
one. It's just the one guy. It's just Dreyfus.
No, it's more than one.
I thought it was just Dreyfus.
I think it's different in this version.
We'll know soon enough. Maybe.
I think it's multiple
Maybe
people.
Spielberg wants the whole world to go away.
I think it's all of them, and then Dreyfus gets added.
Somebody's probably got a really funky, like fan theory going on with this, and E.T. and War of the Worlds.
I'm sure they do, and I'm sure they're wrong.
Some sort of falsely constructed Steven Spielberg cinematic universe of aliens.
Yeah, the 30s really was the worst decade for movies.
That's exactly what I was saying.
But this is a great movie.
This is a good movie.
Yeah. You see, now so they're taking Dreyfus onto the ship,
They want Dreyfus.
but I don't remember them just stopping with him.
I think they just take him.
Well, we're gonna find out, aren't we?
Yeah, that's true.
Hold your fucking rockets.
We're moments away. It's been chosen. Bob Balaban with a beard. Dude looks good with a beard.
Dude looks like he's got a bigger chin than forehead, though.
Yeah, I like it better when he's fully bald, though.
Oh yeah.
Bald and with a beard. That's the right combo.
I've seen him
Bob.
with hair.
He has hair in this movie.
Well, more hair.
Really?
Like a full head of hair.
I just always envisioned him coming out kind of bald.
No.
Starting and ending mostly bald.
So the one glaring problem with this ending, of course, the one that everyone always likes to bring up is, so he just kind of forgot about his wife and kids.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's necessarily a problem.
It's just, it was far-fetched for a lot of people.
It's a devolution of his character. Really, it's just a movie. It's not so much a movie about aliens as it is a movie about obsession.
Maybe it's a movie about a terrible father figure.
Exactly.
Maybe this is the other side of E.T.
It's just
because in E.T. we never see the father.
That's true.
And in this movie we only see the father.
See, you're coming up with the.
Well, it's not like it's a literal
far-fetched connection.
It's more like a metaphorical one. Like
the aliens are really a
thematic connection.
The aliens are really just a metaphor for a gambling addiction.
Okay, no, you see, he's doing the thing. He did the thing. Oh, damn it! I've missed him doing the thing.
The hand signal.
The thing, yeah.
Oh, there's the alien's response, though.
Look at that adorable little alien. Fuck you. He gave up halfway.
Well, maybe he's got a different message. Maybe his message is fuck you. So this is the, I guess, kind of, or not super, but pretty close to the more like iconic alien depiction.
We've come for the one you call Spacey.
The gray. The look of the gray.
I can't wait for the next M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Do you know what it will be?
Yeah, Unbreakable 2.
Oh, Unbreakable 2.
I think it's being called. It's called Glass.
Oh yeah, Glass. That's right.
I can't wait. I saw some behind the scenes footage of it, like a scene with Bruce Willis and James McAvoy. Whew! I can't wait. I'm excited.
I'll go see it.
Don't say it like that.
We'll go see
Don't say it like that. You're ruining it for me already when you say things like that.
I'll go see it.
I've only got so many years left on this planet, Isaac. I want to enjoy them.
I'll go see it. Yeah. You know, I liked Split very much up until I was like, oh, all right.
You liked Split until the very best part of Split happened.
Until the shared universe.
Oh, so they just took him?
Yeah, I told you. It's just Dreyfus. They just want him.
Okay, this is
Which
not,
makes you
okay,
ask,
this is not the version I saw then.
Which makes you wonder, like, what's so fucking special about that dude? This shot I remember.
Are you sure this is the director's cut?
Director's cut, man.
Yeah, this is not the version I've seen of this movie.
Spielberg wanted.
There's a movie I've seen that's longer.
Longer.
There
probably is a longer cut.
No, the one I saw was like.
I know there's an editor's
The one I
cut,
saw
too.
was definitely longer than 2 hours and 15 minutes. It was longer.
Oh wow, there we go. Steven Spielberg film.
Yeah, no, the one I saw, they actually go inside the ship and we see the inside of the ship.
Yeah, you did. I remember you saying when I said it was a little over 2 hours. You're like, oh really? Just 2 hours? So yeah, maybe there's a longer version.
There's a longer version. I know I saw it. I know for a fact that there was one.
But not this one.
Not this one. This one is
Production
shorter.
Designer Joe Alves. Well done. Great
Douglas Trumbull. That's why the movie's pacing drops because of this fucker.
Music by John Williams, who I am offering $500. No, that's too much. I don't have $500. $100 for someone to find an example where John Williams does something that's mediocre. Or even just not great. It's frustrating because I kind of looked for it the other day, and it's.
Why don't you listen to Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets?
The problem is that score is great.
I don't know.
It's great. It's a great score.
It's not as good as the third one.
I don't like the third one. You know I don't like the third one.
That's because you have poor taste. You don't like Kevin Spacey. You don't like the
I
best
like
Harry
Kevin
Potter
Spacey.
movie.
I just don't like. I don't like his personal life. I still like his career.
I don't believe you.
He doesn't believe me. See if you can find my guy Jay Allen in the credits.
I gave up. I can't find them.
Yeah, too long. I remember Tommy was pitching the idea of making a short film out of like guys just going into like the alleyway behind the Center for UFO Studies and finding like an alien body. It's simple, but it's very much up my alley. So Tommy, get to work.
Yeah, get to work, Tom.
You're back in the country. You're not doing any work.
This is always the running gag whenever we talk about him, is that he's not doing anything.
You have time to listen to this podcast, and as long as you have time to listen to this podcast, Fabricio and I will berate you, we will harass you, we will shame you, publicly tar and feather you in front of yourself, since you're the only one we know of who listens to this.
So,
although I do think I got us a second listener.
Oh yeah?
Perhaps regrettably, but yes.
Oh yeah, you got them just as I was getting at my rapiest.
Just as Fabricio gets his least politically correct.
Terrible week to decide to watch, to listen.
But my father-in-law
Yes.
found out that we're doing a podcast, and he told Spencer to make sure that she set him up with where to find it.
Oh God!
Before she left, and I think she did.
I'm so sorry, sir. You deserve better.
So those comments you made about my wife earlier in the episode do not reflect well.
I'm sure
on either of us.
I'm sure if he ever met me, he'd kick my ass. But I also, to his credit, I give the man credit, and I will say he's probably not going to listen to this because he has better things to do with his time.
Yes, he does. But he might still. But yeah, the man is busy. Well, that was the movie. That's it. So this has been another episode of Background Noise with Isaac Carlson.
And me, your friendly neighborhood rapist sympathizer.
Right. And I guess on that note, we'll see you next week. Or we won't see you and you won't see us, but we'll be here.
Yeah.